Starts with a J.
Yeah. June, January, July.
All right, welcome everybody to Highland City Council. Today is July 7th, and it looks like we have all the council members in attendance. So we'll go ahead and get started with an invocation by Councilmember Smith and the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Rice.
Our kind Father in heaven, as we meet together as members of the staff in Highland City, our public safety officers, city council, the mayor, and citizens, we are very thankful for the opportunity we have of living in the city of Highland. At this particular time of the year and celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, we are very thankful for our freedoms and liberty. We're thankful for the opportunity to serve in a constitutional republic as representatives of the citizens. We're thankful for the many blessings we have of living in Highland. We ask you to bless us this night, that we may have thy spirit, that we may deliberate, make good decisions, and that we may engage in civil discourse. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
The audience, please rise. Ready, begin. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and just as a reminder, Highland City is committed to civility and respect, and we ask everybody to act accordingly. So the first thing that we're going to do is our unscheduled appearances. So we don't have any public hearings tonight, so if you have anything at all that you would like to address the council about, now would be the time. And it looks like, oh, we do have one public hearing. So we'll hear from that applicant then, the public hearing for the dog park. We've got Sarah here and Taylor, and if you would like to, come on up and make your comments. Just go ahead and push the button so that it turns green.
Okay, is that on?
There. Yep, and go ahead and let us know your name, and then you've got 3 minutes.
Yes. My name is Sarah Sandberg Pletch, and I have been part of Highland City Run Club for 9 years with my 6 children. My youngest was 2, and my oldest is now 11. I have been so inspired by the dedicated quality of our little group of neighbors. It never ceases to amaze me. Collectively, our children have run nearly 90,000 miles over 9 years and raised tens of thousands of dollars to help bring water to children in Africa, to help with local children battling cancer, and aid in other humanitarian needs. I think any city would love to have such dedicated and devoted citizens in their community. It is truly inspiring. I would just like to read to you a letter from the 6 moms that have supported it this year. Dear members of the City Council, we are the 6 moms who organize Run Club at Canterbury South Park, and we are writing to ask for your support. Run Club is a 30-minute free neighborhood activity every summer morning for 9 weeks for any child who wants to come. 80 runners on an average a day, and the average runner is 8 years old. In just 4 weeks this summer alone, the children have run 2,500 miles. Children average 9 laps a day, over 2 miles each day. Our youngest runner is 1 year old. Most children and families run or ride bikes to Run Club. Run Club works the way a neighborhood park is meant to work. It is an informal neighborhood activity, the kind the city's own field use policy welcomes at neighborhood parks. Anyone is welcome to run alongside or use the park with us. No teams, no leagues, no fees. Children run laps on the park's designated path, earn punches on a card, and work toward milestones. Neighbors get to know each other. Families that live right next to the park run with us. We take our trash home with us, and we never touch the city's cans. And when the city measured our sound levels, we were comfortably within the decibel limits of the ordinance. The city manager has visited twice this year and seen it for herself. Some of you have visited too, and we would love to have any of you join us at our Summer Run Club. Come see the kids run. Canterbury South, or sometimes called Canterbury Circle Park, is the right home for Run Club, and not by accident. It is safe. The loop is short enough that even our littlest runners can complete a lap on their own while staying inside of the adults. And it is in our neighborhood, close enough that kids can get there on their own 2 feet. A bigger park farther away would undo all of that. Kids would have to travel by them children far away. It's almost 2 miles away from where the future park was that they suggested. It would be too far, and it also has too long of a loop. It's too far because we can't see the children. We can't monitor them the entire time. They go out of range, and it's on 2 very busy streets. What makes Run Club work is that it belongs to this neighborhood. We ask nothing from the city. No funding, no facilities, no special treatment. We know a couple of neighbors have concerns, and we genuinely want to be good neighbors to everyone around the park. We simply ask for your support as we keep giving these kids a free, healthy, positive way to spend their summer mornings. A park full of kids running laps for half an hour on a summer morning is a park doing exactly what it was built to do. Thank you for supporting the kids of Highland, and thank you for your service of Highland City. Sincerely, Haley Peterson, Lisa Kern, Ashley Belliston, Jenny Ashby, Sarah Sandberg-Pletch, Lauren Myrick, and the Run Club organizers of Highland City, Utah. I encourage you to allow us to continue running where we are. We are thrilled to be part of Highland, and we thank you for all the work and dedication you give to our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Taylor.
My name is Taylor Cutler. I came a bunch earlier this year to talk about Canal Boulevard on 6180 intersection, and we were asking for a stop sign, and we have a wonderful crosswalk now. I think it's probably better than a stop sign, so thank you. I just wanted to say thank you. It's working really well, and the road is so much more narrow, so it's so much easier to cross. It feels a lot safer, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for listening to our concerns and acting on them.
That's so nice. Thank you. Thank you for coming. That's nice. That's really nice. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm sorry I didn't fill out a card, but I'm Wesley Warren, Highland City resident. So I think there was a note sent to you guys on behalf of a library patron recently. And in case you haven't seen it, or in case it wasn't sent, and then for the benefit of the public, I just thought I'd stand up and read it real quick. It says, on Friday afternoon, so this is the day before 4th of July, an elderly woman came into the library. She was visibly upset and unable to speak. She wrote on paper that she was being scammed. She couldn't speak because the scammer was on the phone with her, and she needed help. We, the library staff, we pressed the silent alarm and brought her into our back office to sit down. The person she was on the phone with had convinced her that he works for her bank and that she needed to wire transfer her money somewhere else. Right after transferring $40,000 to him, she realized that she was probably scammed and didn't know what to do. She decided that the library ladies would be able to help her. She kept the scammer on the phone and came straight to the library. When the police officer arrived, he spoke on the phone with the scammer, who brazenly said that he would not stop scamming people or return the money. After the call ended, the officer helped the elderly woman contact her bank and walked her through the steps to report the theft. The woman repeatedly said that she was so glad we have a library in Highland and that she knew we would help her. She said over and over to us, I need glasses, guys. I am so grateful for the library. I'm so grateful you're here. I knew you would be able to help me. And this story isn't even that exceptional. We hear about being on the library board, and I know a couple of you know this, like we're able to hear about stories like this all the time. People coming in, needing a service that no one in the world would guess the library could provide. And I think that it's really special that not just our library, but libraries in general are able to do anything and everything for anyone that walks through the doors. And I know, I never, in my support of the library, I never want it to sound like it's either you support the library or you don't, because that is about as unfair a statement as there can be. I think it's important to acknowledge the practical consequences of not supporting funding the library, or rather to continue underfunding the library. Nobody intends to harm the library. Nobody, no matter what position you're taking, and we know that, and I know that. But opposing the funding it needs to operate essentially has that effect. And I'm terrified that we wouldn't be able to provide these kinds of services for our citizens if we cut hours, or if we cut staff, or lost some of the staff that we have now. So I guess I'll just keep coming and sharing these fun, heartwarming anecdotes because we get them all the time. And thank you guys. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Wes. Anybody else? Hi, welcome.
Good evening, Council. My name is Melissa Holman, and I'm a resident of Highland City. I'm speaking here today because I'm concerned with the clear violation of our Fourth Amendment rights under the guise of safety. Right now, we are all being surveilled, tracked, targeted, and categorized at the hands of a sinister corporation whose primary investor is a man named Peter Thiel, chairman of Palantir and no friend of no other than Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. Mr. Thiel and Mr. Epstein have exchanged more than 2,000 emails, some discussing the creation of a secret society. Now, why would a man so bent on surveillance and tracking us want secrecy for themselves? They are creating a system to monitor and surveil you 24/7, to predict your behavior and document it, and connect you to your social credit score that will correspond with the central banking digital currency. This is not communist China, this is America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. Because of the brave, our founders resisted and fought tyranny to ensure our freedom. Ben Franklin said it best: those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Be honest, this is not temporary. This is here to stay and grow exponentially vast unless we do something about it. Our government has grown far too powerful and comfortable, and every day we the people are losing more and more of our freedoms. If history has taught us anything, it's that when you give up your rights, you're almost guaranteed never to get them back. And that time and time again, government and their enforcement will carry out orders no matter the morality of them or how tyrannical they are. We need people with backbones and voices to stand up and speak right now. This is not about safety, and I'm not a criminal because I don't want to be spied on by pedophiles and government servants. Some are government servants. Who controls this data? Does Highland City control the data? Recent news and articles show this tool is being abused nationwide by law enforcement to track ex-wives, girlfriends, or to target people they do not like. Right now it is cameras, tomorrow it is cameras and maybe some drones. Right now it's 10 cameras, tomorrow it's 20, and maybe some drones. Soon, drones as first responders. We need to all wake up. If you want safety, I suggest practicing your Second Amendment right to bear arms. If you want mass surveillance state, I suggest moving to China. It's as evident to anyone paying attention. We can all see what's going on, and I'm not going to be silent about it, no matter the outcome. I'm asking you, as our representatives, to make a statement nationwide right now that Highland City stands with freedom. And on the 250th anniversary of this nation, we should reflect on where we started and where we are today. Please reconsider this contract with Flock Safety and do what our founding fathers would do. Tear them down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Anybody else? No? Okay, we will go ahead and...
Other people here on the Run Club, but they didn't put in a card. I don't know if they want to say anything. Really? Mr. Myrick is here as well.
If we have any other public comments, they're welcome to come forward. If not, if you signed the roll, then we'll also know what you're here for. Did you want to say? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for being here. Okay, we will move on. Just for everybody's information, we're going to move item 5A up. This is the public safety report on Independence Day. We're going to hear that along with item 3A so that Chief can be on his way. He has a flight to catch. And we're also going to move item 5B up. That is the item about open space sales purchases, property sales. So we're going to have that item before we talk about property sales. So that being said, we can move on to our consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, not hearing any comments from anyone, I move to adopt the consent agenda with the printed amendment to the June 16 minutes that I distributed.
I'll second it.
All right, we've got Councilmember Courtney and Councilmember Smith, and I assume we're electronic voting?
Yes, it looks like we are.
Mine's not working. Oh, okay.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Okay, that passes 5-0. Let's go ahead with item 3A. This is our wildland urban interface maps, and that's what I'm going to refer to it as. Because I don't like that other word.
Wooey?
No, I don't like that. I think it's a weird acronym.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we've talked about the WUI on several occasions, despite Mayor's resistance to the term. The Wildland Urban Interface, by way of background, we've talked about it several times because the state has been talking about it several times. Last year, we had some laws that got passed. We are required to, before the WUI was somewhat optional, last year that changed. And essentially the state said you have to adopt and enforce our WUI code, the Wildland Urban Interface Code, in order to remain eligible for state funding and assistance with fires on national and state land. So a lot of the lands we have through here and other fires that are catastrophic in nature. So in response, the city did adopt the code in place at the time, which was the 2006 Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code. As part of that, we were supposed to adopt a map that says where that applies. State law was still in flux. We had a lot of conversations up at the Capitol with other fire chiefs, with state agencies, that they basically said, wait, we're still finalizing what we require for the WUI map, so we've held off. Also, you may recall from last year, there was talk about an assessment that counties would start imposing on homes within the Wildland Urban Interface, certain high-risk areas. That was supposed to be implemented this year, and then this year, it got postponed to next year. So January 1st is kind of the beginning time for a lot of these WUI updates, including the county fire assessment, unless they change it again. Who knows what will happen. But as far as we know, the WUI code is now in place, and the map, we have clear direction on that. So we have brought this to you, to the council. So the requirements under state is, they said you have to adopt a map, and the map can only include certain areas that we have deemed at a risk category 5 or higher. And the state does that. We can ask permission for other areas. When we looked at this as staff and the fire chief, and you can speak for it as well, we didn't see a need to do that, especially when it would require kind of special approval, and it does cost. There's cost associated with enforcing and applying WUI to homes. So the ordinance that I proposed, one minor thing is it tweaks the fire code reference from 2021 to 2024, which also goes into effect. It updates our Wildland Urban Interface Code to adopt the 2024 code and its specifications. That will actually take effect in January to align with state law, but we're just getting it all in place now. And we also adopt the WUI map. So in your packet, you had this one in there. We realized this was maybe a little bit confusing because this showed kind of all of the danger areas. So earlier today, I know you may not have seen it, it's the exact same map. We just took off all of the areas that are not the Wildland Urban Interface. So this shows the levels 5 and higher that the state has designated. This just showed essentially 4 and lower as well. So we think this might be a clearer map, so we'd recommend adopting this one as the WUI map. And a little bit blurry. I'm hoping to make this a GIS layer so it'll be really clear to people, but there's only really 3 areas. So on the top right there, you see the Beacon Hill Twin Bridges area. It's kind of hard to see, but that little white area is our irrigation pond, and then going down into Beacon Hills and Twin Bridges for a bit. A bit of Sky Estates, kind of near where the clubhouse is and along the border there, and the eastern half-ish or so of Viewpoint on the side of the mountain there. So just because I know there's a concern about what does this mean for Highland residents. The Wildland Urban Interface Code generally does not require retroactive compliance. We're not going to be telling people they have to go back in and change their home if they're in these areas. And even with an addition or a remodel, we're not going to require the rest of the home to be modified. The code is clear. It says the additions and things that you touch have to be brought up to code, but everything else can stay so long as whatever you're adding on doesn't make the rest of the home less safe. And most of the time that it'll stay the same amount of safe it was before. So it'll mainly just apply to new additions and new construction. Most of these areas are already developed. There's a few lots, I think, left in Beacon Hills to be built, so we will apply it to them. The biggest, I think, change enforcement that we'll see is the defensible space, the separation of modified fuel sources. So trees and shrubs and vegetation. You're still allowed to have trees. You're still allowed to have vegetation. There's just certain rules about it. And like we do in Highland, our goal would be, especially with the hiring of the full-time code compliance and planner tech, to start with education, working with these residents, let them know that they're in this area, what defensible space means, how to apply it, and then working with them, especially over the next 6 months while this starts taking effect, to help them see how they can protect their home. And so with that, I don't have anything else. Anything you wanted to add, Chief? Okay, that ends my presentation, Mayor.
Perfect, thank you. Councilmember Campbell, let's start with you. Do you have any questions about this item?
Yeah, from what I can tell, the Beacon Hills and the Sky Estates is about 120 homes are impacted by this, and probably 45 or 50 in, so we're looking at 175 or so. Is there, in January, is it likely we will be imposing some kind of a fee that we'll have to impose because the state is telling us we have to do that?
We would not do that. The county does that, but it not necessarily applies to these areas. I think it's actually higher risk areas.
The 4 and 5, or the 5 and 6?
Like beyond 5 and 6. It was like the extreme risk areas, which we didn't have any in Highland. So
well, we do. It's like a little corner of...
Yeah, it was like a little corner of our irrigation pond.
Right.
They're going to assess us a fee for that.
Yeah, so that's good.
Now, it always remains subject to change with the state legislature, but we're not anticipating any huge impacts that way to our residents.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Councilmember Rice?
Sure. I actually met with about 60 residents in Sky Estates 2 weeks ago, and I think they're pretty proactive, and I think they've been working with you in taking out some scrub oak, and we discussed, they had a company there that was going to remove some of the scrub oak, but I think, and you've discussed that with them, removing too much so we don't have flooding. But they're really proactive, and I really have to admire that. Also, in some of the guidelines for the new construction, correct me if I'm wrong, that they have to have indoor water sprayers. What do you call it?
Sprinklers, yes.
Sprinklers, thank you. There's a word. Anyway, and I think that's really, I do think it's really a good thing. Now, as I've looked at this map, at the map, we actually have this map. I printed this one off, and that's, that map. So along 9600 North, in that, so the white area, because it's a little different, the other one looks a little like it has measles down there in the south end, right? So, and I'm just going to tell you, because my mortgager and my fire insurance have been sending me letters and emails. Are you affected by the fires much to the south? And if so, here's the FEMA number, here's our phone number, and you need to report it immediately. And I did call them and I said, hey, we are about 200 miles-ish away from that, so please don't raise my fire insurance. But I do think people really need to understand that we're really somewhat in a danger zone. But I kind of am trying to figure out along 9600 North why those are so. Is that one that stretches right there, is that I call it Mitchell Hollow, the hollow?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I had. Thanks.
Councilwoman Rodella?
I have no questions. Makes perfect sense.
So I just have a couple comments and maybe a question, and maybe have you walk through. So I appreciate your explanation. This map is so much better than the one previous, because the other one would have caused a lot of problems. So, and Councilwoman Rice kind of touched on this when, I guess my concern is when we pass this map, and of course this is state, do the insurance companies come right into these people are in higher risk and raise all their rates or eliminate their fire insurance? Is there any protection from the state legislature with that? Has there been any discussion about it? Because I can see there'd be some concerns. Do you have an answer on that?
So a lot of the concerns and part of the defensible space when they were talking about it was essentially if we can create defensible space and everybody creates defensible space, that it makes these places insurable rather than insurance companies just coming in and dropping them. This was all part of a negotiation with the insurance companies to us be proactive as a state and try to, protect these structures, and then the insurance companies also recognizing that we're doing work on them and keeping them insured.
So
that was the idea.
Yeah, that's just a concern because the original WUI map had all my neighborhood because we're by the American Fork River, and I just thought all these people are going to have to pay a lot more insurance premiums. So define a little better and elucidate defensible space and how you bring that about. And what sort, are we going to have a list of trees and plants you can plant in there?
Yes.
Or is this like a no man's land fire break?
No. We're not going to go in and create dozer lines. This is the right types of vegetation. Things like trees that are right up against, like pine trees right up against a wood fence that goes to a wood deck. Things like that where fire can travel. Those are going to be the types of things that, having, typically we say 30 feet off of, if we've got really flammable like oak brush or pine trees or something like that, we want that stuff 30 feet off the structure. But there's a whole list of shrubs and trees as well as ground vegetation that is deemed, nothing's fireproof, but better. It's not going to.
So we'll have lists with the city planner that people can consider?
Yes.
Because there'll be some homes built up in this area. Of course, there's some new ones up in Angels Gate area, and that's all in that area. And so I guess the other question is, you've explained it pretty well in the packet, but I'd like you to, as a city planner and different things, kind of walk me through. So you have someone in these neighborhoods that are, you're 90% all that. So they want to come and do some remodeling. So they live up in Angels Gate or they live in Viewpoint. And they say, hey, we want some remodeling. So they come to you and you say, you're in this wilderness urban interface. So we have a different set of rules for you. You have to put in sprinklers. You have to fix all your landscaping. What do you tell them when they come in?
So one of the things, I think, to the overall point is we do want to do an education campaign first. So hopefully when they're walking with a building permit, that's not the first time they've heard of this. But you're right, that we will let them know we do have these additional state codes that we do have to apply to your building. It won't require, if it's a new building, we'll say you'll have to sprinkle it. There's a couple of exceptions, but more or less they're going to have to sprinkle it if it's new construction. If they're doing an addition, they likely won't have to. But they may have to do the fire-rated insulation and sheet rocking and make it thicker so that addition has more fire resistance even than the rest of the house. But we won't say, okay, now also do the rest of your house and rip off all your siding and do that. We'll say, as long as that's not making the rest of your house less safe, which it, 99% of the time it won't. It's actually making it more safe because you're adding a more defensible space in there. And then we'll say, and also, let's look at your landscaping and, a lot of the landscaping, like there's lists of less flammable plants, and a lot of it is maintaining it. It's maintaining trees that are trimmed back from your house so that they don't catch on fire then immediately light your house. It is clearing deadfall and dry brush so that doesn't sit as the WUI code calls it modified fuel. You're trying to not just scrape it out. It is just you're clearing it and cleaning it essentially so that you don't have the readily available fuels there. And so we'll work with these individuals and point out, here's the requirements you'll need to meet. And It'll probably be more of just, it'll be a little bit more expensive in the sense of, yeah, you'll have to buy the thicker, more fire-resistant sheetrocking, and, make sure the barriers go through into the existing home when you do that, so you don't have gaps that fire can get into. There's even rules in the WUI about, like, if you have a fireplace, you have to make sure you have screen protectors and things of that nature. That'll be more on the education side, and we'll try to help them with the building permit, say, let's get the building permit done, and also, let's start working on your yard just to protect you and your home.
So I'm a little confused about the sprinkler requirement, because I thought they would be required to put sprinklers in that new addition, but you're saying no?
As I've read it so far, it would not be required just for an addition. Now, if you were tearing the house down to a foundation and rebuilding it, yes. Or if you're doing a completely new build, yes.
So we discussed in the past, new builds, I think, is it greater than 10,000 square feet or something? Definitely need sprinklers all the way
Yes.
through.
So the 10,000 square foot is still
Standard
in
now.
place, but it also applies to the urban interface. So if you build a new structure in the urban interface, then that is required to be sprinklered as well. And we do that, it's a lot more likely that we'll have a fire start in a house that goes to forest rather than, I think people always look at it and think that the sprinklers are going to protect their house. We're actually, in the urban interface, strictly sprinklered is to protect the forest from the house. So in 10,000 square foot and greater houses, it's all about travel path and the ability to get out.
That's helpful.
And Madam Mayor, if I could add, do you mind?
Sure.
So about a year ago, I changed homeowners insurances. And it's pretty amazing, going back to your education thing, what they can see with Google Maps. Or, they looked at my house, they told me to remove several trees. And I have an all brick home. And so I did that. I removed several, probably not as much as I should have. But the thing that concerns me, and I really hope the public's listening, they did send me an opt-out sheet for wildfire insurance. And I thought, well, shucks, I'm not on a wildfire list. And I called my insurance agent. He said, you didn't sign that, did you? And I said, no. He goes, don't, you're in a wildfire area. And that's where my education began. And with emergency preparedness, that's one of my big topics that I talk with different church groups and whatnot that we're going through. But people need to really be careful not to opt out of things like that. I don't know if you've ever, a few years ago when Alpine caught fire and they evacuated some homes, I don't know if you've ever seen a tree explode, but it's like a bomb and it just sends everywhere. Nothing is protected. So anyway, that's all I have, I promise.
Dr. Smith, do you have anything else?
No,
Other questions?
he's answered my question. I just kind of wanted to walk through it, because it's easy to pass these things, but really want to know the implications.
No.
Maybe I'll add one more comment. There's severity of risk. There's this severity, but there's also like an individual site severity that we'll have to evaluate. And depending on how severe it is, more or less is required. And you can sometimes mitigate that severity by your landscaping requirements. So you might not have to do as much to the home with an addition, per se, if you've actually really created a good defensible space. So that'll be part of the education, trying to help people create it for their own safety and to also save them money in terms of doing construction on their homes.
Councilmember Courtney?
Only a couple of things I've got is just thanks to you, Rob, and the rest of staff for taking a look at things as we go, and when it looks like we can improve the map, for example, to clarify it, to go ahead and do that, and to emphasize or perhaps confirm with you that my understanding is that any of the fees that we're talking about have nothing to do with the map that we apply. That's based on the state's maps. Is that
correct?
Okay.
It's all wrapped into the state law, but it's not part of this map.
Okay.
But they can ask for it. An insurance company can ask for it.
Although our map, it doesn't matter if they ask for it or not, because it's exactly the same map they can get from the state. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Unless there's any other questions, I think we can move on to a motion.
I move that the City Council adopt the ordinance adopting the State Fire Code, State Wildland Urban Interface Code, and Wildland Urban Interface Map distributed today.
I'll second it.
Okay, that was a motion by Councilmember Rice and a second by Councilmember Smith.
You know, I'm going to vote for it. My phone decided to bring up an advertisement right in the middle of this.
As it does. Do you want to go ahead and vote?
Yes, it's yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, and that passes 5-0. Chiefs, would you like to do your report on the 4th of July? Pull that up a little bit. Rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first.
We weren't in town, so we can.
Good evening. We'll be pretty quick because considering past years and what we dealt with this year was quite a bit of difference. Matter of fact, in years past, we would receive anywhere between, 10 and 15 calls in a 3 or 4 day period, and we received 4 calls this year in Highland. So I think the word got out. Most residents were I don't want you to use the word compliant, but agreed with what the council did. There were some that we had discussions with that were wanting to light them or in the process of starting to light them when the officers approached them and had discussions, and they elected not to after those discussions were held. And that's not to say that we didn't have fireworks that were lit off in the city. I think we all heard them, but I mean, by comparison to years past, it was quite not as much. It was pretty de minimis in our opinion.
So the ones where you talked to them and encouraged them to not light them off, were those people who had been reported or people that you had noticed, or?
So both. We had officers that were driving through neighborhoods, and you could see individuals that were getting ready to light them off or lining their street or their cul-de-sac with fireworks. We had one individual that had spent quite a bit of money on fireworks and had, I would say, hundreds of them were lined up and ready to go, computerized, and the neighborhood was gathering around to watch the show. And the officers stopped and had a lengthy conversation with him, and in the end, he elected to save it for a later day. So,
Was that our former mayor?
no. No, it was not. But it was, I think the word got out, and I think people are, exhausted's not the right word, but are just fatigued with the fires and the smoke and just elected to not do them this year. And that's not everybody, but by and large, we had compliance across the city. So.
Do you have anything to add, Chief?
The only thing whoa, that was too much. The only thing that I would add, and kind of to Councilmember Rice's point, and I think there was a lot of recognition of this. Highland and Alpine have a lot of space between the houses. There's a lot of dry weeds. There's a lot of stuff, and I was impressed, clear to boredom, on the 4th of July, sitting at the Highland Station, which is exactly what we wanted to see. Right? We didn't get called out one time on the 4th of July for anything firework related. Not even to call and say somebody's doing fireworks. So it was, I was impressed by the residents for really just recognizing the kind of fire danger that we're in and we're still in, and not wanting to have that happen here.
Chiefs, have your wildlands folks been deployed at all this summer?
Yeah, so I've got Chris Wilden is still currently on the Iron Fire. He's done on either tomorrow or Thursday. The seasonals are in their R&R, and they will be deployment ready by Thursday or Friday. So they were on one of the Utah strike teams. So they actually traveled in there 2 weeks from Cedar clear out to almost Windover on that fire, and they just chased fires for 2 solid weeks. So
I appreciate everything you both do. I think sometimes it's easy to just assume that you're always there, but it's much appreciated, and your support is much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you.
Questions of the chiefs? Yeah.
Okay. So, both of you are fairly associated with Pleasant Grove. They had a community fireworks show. Was there any problems with that?
Traffic.
Yeah,
Yes,
traffic.
traffic.
I haven't heard anything. I don't think Pleasant Grove's really had any problems with their fireworks show since the firefighters quit shooting it. So now that it's professionally done, so, and I say that, I was there. I was part of the problem, so, for lots of years.
So there weren't any adverse,
I haven't heard of
adverse things
anything.
that happened from that?
No.
So I saw part of that because I own a house in Pleasant Grove too, so I just wondered. So I guess the question is, just real quick, is in 3 weeks or plus, we're going to have the Highland Fling. Are we going to be able to shoot off fireworks?
I mean, for me, yes, it's a lot easier for us to surround, our potentials with a professional show that, and we can regulate it. I mean, if we get something on fire, we can shut it down. We're looking at the wind at 200 feet, there's a lot of things that we can, safety-wise, can do to make sure that that's under control.
Thank you.
We did have a non-fireworks related fire at the Fling last year.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I actually have a text that I got from one of my residents I sent out, and this was before you and I had a discussion
Okay.
that Sunday night. And it's from Doug Richards, and he owns the pastures behind my home. But he sent me this. He said, I'm definitely against fireworks for several reasons: the noise, the air pollution, and water pollution. Lastly, the spent fireworks that I'll inevitably find in my fields, some of which will end in the hay I feed my cows. I work for a company, American Pacific, who had a massive explosion in Henderson, Nevada in the 80s. The chemical they produced, ammonium perchlorate, am I saying that right? Was found in the lettuce fields in California. It was traced back to Lake Mead and ultimately American Pacific. They have spent millions in an ongoing task of remediating the aquifer in Henderson. Most fireworks contain ammonium perchlorate. And I got his permission to read that. And so it affects lots of things, but it was very quiet and actually quite appreciated. My animals appreciated it too. Thank you for all you guys do.
Go ahead.
Do we have information on the Layton that allowed fireworks and the Costa Vida burned down $1 million building? Do we know that that was for sure fireworks related? Have you heard anything about that?
I've only heard that it was firework related.
Okay.
So I don't
know if
the
it's been
details.
confirmed or not, but that's quite a significant loss.
Yeah.
In Layton, which did allow fireworks in that area where this Costa Vida was.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, any other comments? If not, I think we are ready for a motion. No, did we? Yeah, we already did that. Yeah, we're good.
No, we were just having a discussion.
Perfect. All right, let's move on. We were also going to move item 5B up, and this is just a communication item about the property sale and notices. So we'll go ahead and do that before we hear about the specific properties.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked to bring this up. I know we're talking about some property sales. I just wanted to give the council a heads up of the process we now have to follow. State law, once again, changed on us this year, specifically regarding the disposal of public property. They have a lot of requirements if it's a significant parcel of real property. There's like a 45-day notice. Our code already provides that once you adopt a resolution designating something we should have to post a physical sign on the property indicating that offers may be made to the government entity. So we're required to do that by state law. So when you adopt the resolutions tonight, assuming that you approve any sales, what we're going to do is then go out to these properties, post a sign on them saying, we're thinking of selling this property, you're welcome to make offers to the city. I doubt anyone will make an offer other than the applicants because no one else can use this property. That's why it's being disposed of. And then once we go through that notice process, we'll bring it back to the council for a final approval of the contract. So just a heads up of the process. So we can't just, approve the resolution and then go sign a contract to sell it tomorrow. It's going to be a little bit more of a process. Any questions on this?
Are there requirements as to where on the property we have to play? I'm thinking particularly of the one parcel that we're looking at tonight that sits on a corner.
Just on the public property.
Okay.
So I have a question. So I find the legal profession likes terms like reasonable. So you've introduced another one, significant. So how do you define what is a significant amount of land that will be surplused?
So fortunately, the state in this instance has left it to the cities to decide. And a few years ago, I want to say it was like 5 or 6 years ago, we adopted an ordinance specifying what counts as significant. And essentially we said, basically any government property, any property that we sell is considered significant unless we designate it as one of these orphan surplus properties. And so by default, the city has said everything is significant unless we've carved it out as not significant. Now we can always change that definition. The state allows us to do that. But for our purposes, most of the time we're only selling these little orphan parcels, so we'll always just designate it as surplus and not count it as significant. The state does have a default rule. Essentially, if it's over $500,000, it's considered significant. The only time we've sold property like that was when we had when we did Canal and we had those 2 lots that we ended up selling. But by and large, this would not be considered significant under our code.
So any of the 3 that we're describing tonight are not significant?
Correct. So fortunately, we don't have to do a lot more processes.
So tell me about the posting thing. So this is the first I've heard about this. So if we surplus these tonight, these 3 properties, are you going to have to put a sign on each one of their things? And how long does that have to be there?
It doesn't say a specific time, fortunately. So what I'll probably do is, assuming the council approves these, we'll go out, try to by the end of the week post it, and then start working. Potentially by the next meeting, we could be ready to go forward on these items. We don't want it to take long, and I don't see anyone else offering to buy these properties given their locations. But that way we'll have technically met the requirements of the statute, and then we can move on with the actual sale.
So on these 3 properties, aren't we surplusing them today, or you've got to go post them for 2 weeks before we do it?
So the resolutions that we prepared a resolution for each potential sale that says the council is designating this as a surplus orphan parcel, and then you kind of set the general conditions of sale and then say, and we direct that staff follow this notice process. So you're essentially saying these are orphan and we're interested in selling them. We'll then follow the process we have to under state law, and then we'll come back with a final approval for the council saying, and sell it at this price and these terms. We'll try to have like a whole contract together that you can approve.
So you're talking about, though, we know what it's going to cost per square foot. Now
Yes.
it's $572, right? If I understand correctly.
Yes.
Okay, but you'll have the exact measurements then, and you'll bring it back, and we're going to sell 1,700 feet or 5,000 or whatever, right?
That is true. So most of these we'll have to survey them to come up with an exact boundary description. That probably won't be ready by the next council meeting. Once you approve this, we'll start both of those processes at the same time. We'll probably just have a general map like we've done on here saying this general area of property we're interested in selling, plus minus 300 square feet or something.
If I could also add the burden or responsibility to do the surveying, if the property is not already set for sale, is up to the applicant, and so it's their timeline. If they don't get around and do that after we contact them saying, okay, you've been approved for sale by the council, you need to survey, let's get all the documents drawn up based on that surveying. If they don't do that for 2 months, then it doesn't come back to you for at least that amount of time.
So you do the survey, and I understand the applicant needs to do that, but how do you determine exactly how many square feet there are? I'm just thinking of one particular instance today. I mean, what's the process? So you got the survey and you say, and what if that survey disagrees with what the city thinks? I mean, how do you work it out? How do you work that out?
Another way we've handled surveys is we'll order it, but tack it onto the closing price. So when they go to close, there's a term sheet you always have to fill out of what's owed. We can just tack it on as a closing cost. We can look at maybe that might be a more efficient way of doing it. Otherwise, we can let the applicants handle it. But in that case, usually we'll say, here's the parameters. Go out and measure out, say around a retaining wall or something. Measure to the outside of that and give us a description that includes these areas. And they should come up with they could overlay it onto a map, but also a legal description that follows the contours that we direct them to.
And that comes through the survey.
The surveyor will do all of that. I've had them come when we do some properties, it'll often be like, here's a fence line, and they'll actually trace it down the entire length. So they're able to follow monuments like that to get it very precise.
Okay.
Okay.
So I hate to even waste the council or attorney's time on this, but I'm just really curious. Could they get into a bidding war? I mean, is there anything that says somebody comes in and puts out and says, I want the property too, and then and have you thought about that? I mean, it doesn't make sense, but you never know. I'm just curious.
Theoretically, it says that that offers may be made. Someone could come in and make a higher offer. Why they would when we've set a very specific rate and no one else can benefit from the property but them. Theoretically, someone could come and say, I will buy this for $20 a square foot, and I will bring that back to the council, and you can decide what to do with that. I do not foresee that happening ever with these types of properties. It is a possibility.
Okay, perfect. Now that we have that context, let's go ahead and, Jay, if you want to tell us about item B there, and then if the applicant is present, they can come ahead and give us their thoughts as well. And we'll just go through them one at a time.
Good evening, Council. Great to be with you here tonight. The next three items are regarding the sale of orphan parcels in the city. They're all very similar. I hope the packet did a good job of explaining things, but I will go through them just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. This first one is for Mr. Jared Carmen. He lives up in the Viewpoint subdivision. Here's a map of what he is requesting to purchase. It is outlined here in the red. Is my laser working, or do I need to draw? It's that little red, almost canoe-shaped piece there. So that gives you, originally this was a request for a maintenance agreement, but after reviewing it, staff said, that we were holding on to that because in the past there was a chance that the pathway you can see there up in the upper left corner would curve down and run parallel to the sidewalk, and then people said, why would we need a path parallel to a sidewalk, and decided we don't need this anymore. And so we reached out to the applicant and said, are you interested in purchasing? He said, yes, he would like to. And so that's what we're bringing to you today is a purchase of this property. The property is approximately 1,300 square feet, and the estimated cost for the purchase and the revenue to the city would be approximately $7,500. With all of these, there's certain conditions that staff has requested to accompany the sale, mainly because of certain infrastructure interests that the city has in these areas. In this case, the purchaser of the property would need, once again, as we said in the last item, they would be responsible for surveying the land, and if they show this is what we want to purchase, I need you to draw up the dimensions of that. Closing costs, and then capping off and rerouting any city sprinklers. So they would need to work with our Public Works Department to ensure that the sprinklers that we have in the strip along there would be properly capped off. Ordinance compliance, this was one of the things that Public Works just wanted us to be aware of. is that we wouldn't want him planting anything in the park strip that would, or on his property that would interfere with the side triangle. But we watch out for that on any and all intersections and corners. And then as far as maintenance goes, the applicant would have the option to plant in the park strip between the curb and gutter and the sidewalk. Just would be subject to all park strip rules that we have, so that we don't have trees that are buckling the sidewalk and things like that. So we just wanted to make him aware of those things. So those are stipulations that staff has requested upon the sale of the property.
Let's let him finish his presentation.
And that does it for my presentation.
Okay.
So.
Go ahead.
So on the park strip requirement, and are they here? Is that?
I do not see them.
Okay.
I only see Mr. Louder here.
I will
of the
just
three
tell you
applicants.
that my park strip is where I lose most of my water. And I'm just wondering, I mean, is this something they really want have they asked you to not have that park strip? Because
They want the park strip.
they want the park
Yeah.
strip. Okay.
When we showed him that this is what they would be eligible to purchase, he said, well, wait, can't it extend to all the way to the curb? And we said, no, no one ever actually buys up to the curb.
Well, and there's not already a park strip. It looks like there's a park strip there.
Yeah, there is. So,
Okay,
you know.
but that's, okay, I understand.
yeah.
Thank you.
He would like to plant in the maintenance agreement. He had some trees that he wanted to plant down, along the sidewalk. And those are actually approved trees based on our park strip requirements. So there was no problem there. We just wanted to make sure he had them properly spaced. There's a 20-foot gap you have to leave in between trees, and he was a little bit closer than that. So we just clued him in on that one, but otherwise.
So he has maintained that, and it looks like it's already planted from a maintenance agreement? Am I wrong?
No, he does not have a maintenance agreement.
That was the previous owner. He's
The
taken
previous-
those
okay.
trees out now.
All right.
Yeah. So nothing in the area to be sold, except maybe at the top there, is there right now, but he does intend to plant some trees and shrubs and beautify that area with more than just grass, and so.
Councilmember Rodella? Dr. Smith?
I don't have any concerns.
Does this money, it just goes in the general fund? Wasn't there at one point in time, if you were selling off open space, but maybe this is different because it's an orphan parcel, that the money went back to that subdivision? Do you remember that?
There was a lot of discussion that way when we had the open space fund.
And we used to put it into the open space fund.
That's right.
And now we don't have that fund. 'Cause
So it goes to the general
We finally
fund.
managed to close out that district. So I believe David can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it'll just go into our general fund.
Okay.
I know in the past we talked about like certain areas, like in Beacon Hills or something, when we talked about selling it, that we'd allocate that like toward a park in that area, but that's just been on a kind of case-by-case basis.
City Administrator Wells has indicated it might be a good idea to use some of the proceeds to put up fences to delineate where, especially where we're having encroachment issues, where the boundary between city property and private property is not exactly clear, especially up in Beacon Hills along that pathway where we do have a split rail fence. That's been helpful in people knowing where to stop. If we could expand that throughout the city, that was something that she had mentioned would be helpful.
Did you have another question about that?
Well, yeah, and I think you're bringing up a point, because in previous councils, we have discussed about when we sell these orphan properties, that we use at least part of the funds and for that particular neighborhood, or at least prioritize that. And we may want to bring that up as a discussion again, because things have changed, because we've eliminated the open space fee and the open space fund and everything like that. But it would seem kind of logical a little bit to use at least a portion of that money, or have a portion of it prioritized for that neighborhood.
I agree.
And so I think maybe we should bring that back the council and have a good discussion. Maybe start out with a discussion first.
Councilmember Courtney.
I just have two questions about this particular parcel. First of all, on the northwestern edge of it,
Yeah.
am I correct in assuming that kind of the arc that they're drawing there, that it will follow the line of the path at the same distance as the current property line?
Yeah, that curve is there because of the curve in the path.
Right.
And that's a 5-foot buffer, which you'll hear more about. The sale stipulations impose a 5-foot, like you
Right.
can't get closer than 5 feet to a trailway.
Right, and their property line further up the trail is 5 feet.
Yeah.
Off of it, so, yep, okay. And that means, incidentally, that the tree that we see there, right there, that the red line goes through, is on the property that they'll be buying. So.
Yeah.
The other question that I have is just that, look to me, looking at this, that the portion of the trail there is part of the Murdoch Canal Trail. That's how it was labeled on Google, at least. If that is indeed the case, well, first of all, does anyone know if that is? It didn't seem like it to me, but that's how it was labeled.
Murdoch Canal Trail's south.
No, I don't think that's the case. Originally, the Bonneville Shoreline Trail was up there.
That's what he's thinking of. It's
Yeah.
the Bonneville Shoreline Trail.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding of the trail in the area is just a neighborhood trail. That's a large,
Yeah.
It's a trail that goes through a large open space in the neighborhood.
Right.
But given that that's up in Viewpoint,
Right.
your only way in and out
It's
is
right.
down the hill, the road there.
Okay,
So
perfect. I have no other questions then.
Councilmember Campbell, questions on this particular piece?
Just the fact that we require a survey, I guess that's so that we know the square footage, number one, and we have a legal description in order to make the transaction happen. Without a survey, we really don't have that.
Yeah, we're just eyeballing it.
Right, okay,
So-
thank you.
And we don't have the applicant here, so we would be ready for a motion on this first one.
I just wanted to thank these guys for spending time with me today, Jay and Chris, both, thank you.
I'll make the
I
motion.
move that the city council approve the attached resolution declaring city-owned property adjacent to the property owned by Jared Carmen as an orphan parcel and direct staff to move forward with the sale of that property to Jared Carmen.
I'll second it.
Okay, that was Councilmember Rice and Dr. Smith, and we're ready for a vote on that one. Okay, that passes 5-0. Moving on to item C, which is the Johansson property.
And before I move on with this one, I just want to thank council for their help and patience in this new process that we're going through. These three are the first review, applications and review for open sales that we've done. You helped us draft the process a few months ago, and so we appreciate your patience as we go through this. This is the first time that Public Works, Engineering, Planning has reviewed these for public eyes to see, and we're learning each day how we can do these better. So we appreciate your patience on this. So the applicant here is Craig Johansson, and this is a mock-up I did of what he is proposing to purchase behind his house. He's just above Bull River in that development there. And that one is, pretty, it's a rectangle. He wants it to, the one in the image in the packet was a little bit, it went down a little bit based on a drawing that he had provided us. And then he sent a follow-up email saying, no, scratch that. I just want it to be, run completely parallel to my existing property line. So that's what it looks like now. I redrew one, but you can see where that is in relation to the trail. And as we mentioned earlier with Councilmember Courtney's question, there is a 5-foot buffer that we require, and that would keep that intact. So the property is approximately 1,500 square feet, so that would generate about $8,500 in revenue for the city. Staff review and stipulations. A minimum of 20 feet of city-owned property needs to be maintained. This is possible by keeping a buffer of 5 feet north of the trail. And so when you say 20 feet and you've got a 10-foot wide trail going through the middle of that 20 feet, that leaves you 5 feet on either side. That's what we're trying to provide for. And that's just so that we have access through that area for our infrastructure maintenance, mainly water lines in the area. So the next item in our stipulations, the applicant pays the pressurized irrigation impact fees relative to the additional property. That's about $750 is what was estimated. And then lastly, the applicant either, one, apply for and obtain a maintenance agreement for the property between where his new property line ends and the trail, or he stops watering and maintaining that gap property there. Sure.
That's how much money for the city, I'm sorry?
$8,500.
Did you want to clarify something about the no build on this zone, on this one particularly?
That was another slide, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we do have all of the properties along this trail here had a 25-foot building setback line where you could, within the last 25 feet of the property, they could not build an above-ground structure. So staff's question to clarify is, do you want to keep that line where it is right now, so it's essentially like, I don't know, 35 or 40 feet back, or do you want to move it out with the property line so the last remaining 25 feet is still where the no-build line is? Am I making sense?
Yep. Anything else on that one? Do you have anything else in your presentation?
No, that concludes it for this one.
All right. Councilwoman Rodella, do you have any questions or do you have an opinion about the no-build sign?
No questions. I don't have an opinion. Does Bull River or subdivision, did they have an opinion on that as well, or no?
We believe that was requested so that it would, above-ground structures would not block their line of sight. And so that's, if it helps, the applicant is considering building a pool there.
Okay.
So, and if you look two parcels down to the east of this one, those people have purchased and built a pool there that goes right up. So,
go ahead.
Okay, so this is kind of where institutional knowledge comes in, because this is the buffer area between Country French Estates, which kind of sits up above the Bull River. And we've had 2 or 3 very heated discussions in the past on City Council about maintaining this buffer zone, and it actually been reduced by quite a bit. The problem with the swimming pools, and obviously there's one up the street, because that was the last time we had the discussion and things, and there was a lot of compromise that went on between the neighbors, but we had lots of people come to the public hearing and things. And I think we need to be careful how we define above ground, because, I mean, a pool is at ground level, but people build structures around that pool that are above ground. And I kind of think we need to look at that pretty carefully, because you have diving boards and you have gazebos and you have all that stuff. So I think we just need to be kind of careful and defining what we mean by above ground in a no-build zone, basically, or right adjacent to it. So that has been a really heated and discussed issue in the past. So on this sort of thing, you're going to put up a sign, because we talked about that, saying that we're going to surplus this area. So it might be interesting to see what happens. Some of the people that were really concerned, though, have actually moved from the city. So, I don't know. But this may be an area where there is some discussion when you put the sign up.
Do you need an answer on the no-build zone tonight, so we need to decide that tonight, or is that something we can revisit? Just seems like we don't need to talk about it.
I think we can revisit it, but we need to look at what was finally decided.
Yeah, if we want to, before it's finalized, we do need to hash out and finalize a decision on this so that the applicant knows what,
The default would be that the no-build line stays where it is, yes or no? If you sell it, what would be the default?
It would stay where it is.
Okay.
My only, I can't speak for the applicant, but if it were me and I have to go out and pay to have this surveyed, if I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to build my pool the way I want, I may pull out of the deal. So
But there's a precedent because the previous homeowner that we had the discussion with has actually done this very thing, right?
Yeah,
As I understand. He's built the pool right up there.
I'm just saying that if he can't, like, I want to put a grotto in that's, 8 feet above ground, is that a no-go for the council or what?
Well, we're going to need to discuss that.
Yeah, and so.
And hear from those residents because
Right.
they will have an opinion.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions? Dr. Smith?
No.
Nope. Councilmember Courtney?
With regard to the 25-foot setback, I'd be interested to know what we did 2 houses to the east, because we had exactly the same question come up, presumably. And so am I correctly understanding that, if we're not deciding tonight, actually, that next question, I can just catch up with you, Rob, later and address my next question. This is the type of parcel that I tend to be disinclined to sell because I have a difficult time convincing myself that there is no future city use for it. It's on a corner, so it's not like we've sold property on both sides and we've got this little jack-o'-lantern tooth sitting there that clearly we're not going to do anything with. So really, that's just the remaining item that I'm wrestling with on this one. I don't really have any questions about it. I think that the agenda packet and your presentation did a great job of kind of laying out the facts. So thank you.
Councilmember Campbell?
On the 5 feet, it's 20 feet and a 10-foot path and 5 feet on each side. We're required to maintain that. Is that right? Which
Yes,
we don't do a very
we
good
would
job.
require what's between where his new property line goes to.
Right.
And the path.
So in that property, do we know if we're maintaining that or is he just mowing that with his own stuff? Because I look at what we have, that 5 feet on both sides at Canterbury by Foxwood, where we had those people, take out stuff to give us our trail through there, and Millhaven went through and finished the trail for us, but we've not maintained that.
At all.
At all. I mean, Kim and I were there, and it looks like it hadn't been touched for months.
And I was there too, and it was bad.
If I had to guess, it looks like he's mowing it just based on the mow lines you can see in this map here.
Yeah.
They match the ones on his property.
And my concern is not something we can deal with tonight. It's just long range. We keep having these 5-foot sections, 10 feet actually, 5 in each side, that we're supposed to be maintaining. If we can't figure out how to maintain it, then we've got to look at why we have it.
And part of the stipulations that staff has requested for this is that he would need to have a maintenance agreement so that he does have permission and will maintain the space between where his new property
he's
line
willing
is
to.
and the, yeah.
And you're talking about this?
No, this here.
This part, okay.
Yeah, the below.
mean,
Our part, it's our 5 feet. It's actually going to be wider than 5 feet because he doesn't want a triangle.
It's this section.
It's
you're
that
talking
section
about,
right there, yeah.
That's right.
So
Thanks,
if
Sam.
we're to maintain that, we've got to figure out, if we're going to keep doing this, how are we going to maintain it? But anyway, that's another discussion for another time, so I don't have
A
any
lot
other
of time, that property is designated as it's supposed to be natural vegetation,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is
But the
weeds.
Canterbury one just needs to be mowed down, and it hasn't been, so.
Councilmember Rice, do you have questions on this one?
So when you talk about the guy down the way that has the pool, is right up to the yellow line right there? Or he wants to put it to the red line?
You want, his property line is the yellow line right now.
Okay,
And he wants to move it to the red line.
but he would put a pool very close, there's no set.
Yeah, a pool would be somewhere in there.
In
He
there.
didn't say
There's a
exactly
setback for a
how.
pool from the property line.
Yeah, I think there's a setback, but I was just curious. I'm kind of with, not kind of, I am with Ron on this because, I mean, I struggled with open space for years. I was on the open space committee since Moses wore short pants for like 15, 16 years. And I get this, but some of these places, I understand it's natural vegetation, but maintained to us is not maintained to the public, where it just looks grisly and bad. And if he puts a fence up, which I'm assuming he will, that other part, I just would like to see him, if he wants more. I mean, it looks like it's being maintained now. Is that wrong? Is he mow? It looks like it's being mowed or whatnot right up to the
It looks like he
trail.
is mowing it right now, yes. He
And
may be
based on
watering
the-
it as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, based on the staff report, he is watering it as well, because it said that if he doesn't enter into the maintenance agreement, that he would stop.
Yeah.
And there's, and so we would have to change our ordinance to let it go clear to the, or within, 5 feet of the trail? Or what? I wasn't part of that discussion. I don't remember that. I've been here for 4 years out there, but I don't remember that. Anybody want to answer that for me?
I mean, as of right now, the rules say the city keeps 5 feet along trail corridors because we want to keep those open for safety and for just
Is
general
that 5
feel.
feet? That looks bigger than 5 feet to me.
And I believe that that's, it may be in city code someplace, but that's in the resolution that deals with identifying orphan parcels, if I remember correctly.
Those rules are there in the packet.
Okay. And I read
in the
that. but
background, and-
Isn't that bigger than 5 feet right there?
It could be on the corner there. You know, we'd let him draw his line. You know, we mark 5 feet out from the path and say, okay, at least on this corner, you're, you know, whether you have kind of a wonky little corner there or you just the whole line, if you want it to be parallel, you'll just have to move it up 6 inches or something.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are ready for a motion on this one, if nobody has any other questions.
I'll make a motion. I move that the city council approve the attached resolution declaring city-owned property adjacent to the property owned by Craig Johansson as an orphan parcel and direct staff to move forward with the sale of that property to Craig Johansson, and that the 25-foot no-build zone be maintained at its current location until further discussion. Does that work?
I'll second that.
Okay, that was Councilmember Rodella with the motion and Councilmember Rice with the second, and we can go ahead and vote on this one. And that one passes 4-1, and we can move on to the third one, and then hear from Jay and then the applicant.
So this is for Mr. and Mrs. Louder. They approached the city a little bit ago about, well, it's been more than a little bit ago. Thank you for bearing with us. For a purchase request. As you can see on this map, there is a red triangle toward the top there. That triangle represents the portion of city property. So there's Mr. Louder's property, and then there's a bit of city property that runs around that. That was supposed to be a trail corridor, but the city in the past has sold other portions of that corridor, plus we own everything beyond that as well, and so that is no longer really needed as a trail corridor. On top of that, you can see that blue line running through it. That is a stream and sometimes a river, depending on the time of year, that runs through that city-owned property that would preclude this from realistically being a trail ever. I went out and visited the site with Councilmember Smith and Campbell, and it was very clear that only very small portions of this property are useful. to the applicant. There's also, you can see that green one, that represents a trail that's been created through that city-owned property. And so after further review, it does not make sense for the applicant to purchase the entire parcel here. So what staff would like to recommend in this case is the sale of that corner triangle as requested by the applicant, as well as 2 small areas where some innocent and inadvertent encroachment has happened when the yard was being landscaped. The requested triangle piece is about 150 square feet, which would be about $900. To be determined, the additional property with the encroachment to be determined by survey, but it's estimated to be around 1,000 square feet. It could be more, it could be less, I'm not sure. But the estimated cost for the purchase of that would be about $5,720 based on the going rate. Staff review and stipulations. Once again, a survey to determine the actual extent of the encroachment to be paid by the applicant. The encroached areas would be purchased by the applicant, and the applicant would pay the pressurized irrigation impact fees relative to the additional property. And that would only apply to that triangle. Those other parts along the stream bank are absolutely not irrigable. So that's about $76.50. And that is all I have on this presentation. And yes, the applicant is here. So.
Perfect, thank you. Does the applicant want to come forward? You don't have to. Thank you for coming.
And I have some comments.
Perfect.
Did you want me to?
Yeah, if you just want to go ahead and state your name for the record and then any commentary you would like to add.
My name is Rick Lauder. We lived on this property, this is our 10th year. Been in Highland since 1989, so this is home. I think the driving force behind this whole discussion, more than anything, is the fact that that creek that you looked at is very, very shallow, about less than a foot deep, at the point where that triangle is that we're trying to purchase. And when we have a bad snow year, I've had to replace sod 3 times because there's so much water that comes down, it overflows the banks, washes away our landscaping. So we wanted to buy that property, landscape it, put a little berm there so we can guard against that happening in the future. In the process of going through this with the city and with Jay, and everybody's been very patient with us, we discovered these other areas where we encroached. It's been kind of difficult to landscape this property. We had to bring in 95 dump truck loads of dirt to raise our yard level up to the basement, and in the process of doing that, quite frankly, we ran out of some funds, so we didn't survey the back property line as tightly as we should have. But anyway, we didn't intend to encroach, but we did a little bit, but we're happy to buy those areas and finish our yard and move on if we could.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, if you have a question.
Okay, so this is, I've been involved with this, and just conflict of interest. The Louders were my neighbors for 25 years, 26 years, until they moved up here in my neighborhood. But this is a surprise to me. I was surprised about, so there's the encroachment on the side of the fire pit, which is just some rocks that line the riverbed, and then some bigger rocks, which we think are about 2 feet into the city's property, and then all of a sudden they need to buy 1,000 square feet to cover that. I was kind of surprised on that. Was that, and did you agree to buying 1,000 square feet?
I agree with
there?
Scott. I thought it was about half that.
Can we go back to the picture?
Yeah, this is first I've heard that it's 1,000 square feet. So the red ellipticals, the bananas, I wasn't aware that we were going to have them buy everything to the river. I thought they were just going to have to pay for where they encroach, which is just a few feet on both sides.
So on the Utah County parcel maps, there's a tool that you can use to draw a line on a parcel, and you can have that tool show you what that area is that you've drawn in square feet.
Right.
That, I should have put it, and so maybe it is off. Like I said, it was just an estimate. No one, I am not holding anybody and do not intend to hold anybody to 1,000 feet. But that is, with my drawings, that's about what it came up with. And so.
So can I ask the applicant, would you be interested in buying all of that? I thought we were just going to buy maybe I've just misunderstood all along. And does he need to buy all of that? Because he's buying all the way up to the creek. Yeah.
Pretty much unusable because of the land, of the terrain.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Pretty much unusable because of
Can you just talk
Mr.
into the
Louder, can you go to the
microphone?
microphone?
creek bed. So, I mean, I've been in contact with the surveyor who did.
Mr.
Beacon
Louder,
Hills.
can you please speak into the microphone? It won't be caught on the recording. Thank you.
Okay. I've spoken to the survey company who actually did Beacon Hill originally. Barry Andreasen is the chief surveyor. He's since retired. His successor and I have chatted, and he basically said, let me know how it goes with the council on Tuesday night, and I'll be back out right away, and we can survey these spots in detail. I was a little surprised about the 1,000 square feet, but I didn't want to say anything because I'm.
So is that flexible? Yeah.
Yes, it would be flexible. And maybe this is something for discussion with the council, are we counting, did he encroach up to his usable space, or did he encroach up to the base of the retaining walls? Because the river runs to the base of the retaining walls, and you can see that's where my ovals go to. And that's,
Because the intent was to have him pay for what he has encroached on, correct?
Yeah, so I think you'll have to get it surveyed and
yeah,
and go through
I
that.
just threw a number out
Because it seems
there.
like a lot of property
Maybe
all of a
that was
sudden.
probably a mistake on my part. I should have just said, I don't know, and we'll figure it out once the surveyor gets out there. But
No, that
I did
was
not
on me.
want to
I
cause
asked for an approximate number.
Any
Okay.
alarm there.
So that's the first I'd heard of it. So,
Do you have other questions for the applicant?
yeah, well, I have
one question. Can someone define for me the difference between usable and the other thing, whatever it was?
It's basically the bottom of the rocks. That rock going up like this is not usable.
Right.
The flat area at the top is usable. So are you encroaching from the bottom of the rock where it hits the riverbed, or the top up here? I mean, it's a couple of feet
Yeah,
times the length.
yeah, well, thank you, Ron, you've been there, so you understand
Yes,
what we're talking
yeah,
about.
I know exactly what
We
it is.
basically tried to fortify the creek bed bank to prevent further
And I think
flooding.
you did us a favor as far as keeping that stream manageable. Otherwise, I do think it would have washed through there, and you probably wouldn't have a backyard. So you certainly did the right thing. The question is, do we actually see the encroachment from the bottom of the rock or the top of the usable space? And we can talk about that.
Councilmember Smith, do you have other questions or comments?
Yeah, I do. I've been up there with various council members and different things. So this kind of goes back, I've been involved with the open space neighborhood a long time, like Councilwoman Rice. And I really have always liked the idea of the open space. It makes Highland what it is. But I also think the open space neighborhoods, by and large, were not designed well. And this is an example of it, because we have this city C triangle there that was maybe supposed to be for a trail corridor, but you couldn't put a trail in there because of the creek, unless you had several bridges. And the trail actually that's been created there is Brandon's Trail, which is a neighborhood trail, and the city owns back up to where the property lines start with, let's see, Ridges at Alpine, I believe is their name now. So it's we have kind of these crazy things, and I've been up there, and at first when I talked to Jay and Aaron, because Rob was out of town, I looked at that and I said, oh, that's got to be a trail corridor. And then, if you look at it, there's no way you could put a trail in there except on that little piece. And you have to see, this is not just, you look at the map here and you think, oh, this is all flat land, but the topography there is dramatic as you drop down into that river. And what the Louders have tried to do, as I can see, is they've tried to shore up the creek because sometimes it has a lot of water. And I think there was a big debate whether the city had an easement on this river or not, but the same thing is it needs to be there because there's a lot of runoff some years, and you have examples of rocks being washed down the creek because of the force of the water there. And the reason they want that triangle up there is so that they can berm that so it doesn't, the water from that creek, which is shallow there, doesn't wash through their yard. So most of you have been up there and looked at it. I think this is a common sense exception. The encroachment on that fire pit is just basically the rocks that kind of keep it from falling into the creek. And then there's a little bit of rock encroachment over on the other thing. So to me, it didn't make sense for the Louders to buy that whole section because they couldn't do anything with it. I mean, basically you were buying a creek bed that had to stay open. Now, it's a beautiful area. It's a conservation area, and I would love to live there, to be honest. But that's kind of how I got involved in it. And the more I looked at it, I thought, this makes sense. And I appreciate Jay coming up, and the mayor's been there, and I just think this makes sense. But I would like to have the survey, because I'm not sure we need to charge them for 1,000 square feet there if we can not do that, because they can't do anything with it. I mean, it just goes to the creek, and
Yeah, well, I'd like to understand the usable space versus non-usable space.
Right.
That plays into how much is needing to be purchased, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but once again, I appreciate everybody that's taken the time to come up and visit. That was really gracious of you because it's your private time and you're public servants. But thanks for coming up. I think it helped you all.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. Thanks for coming and for letting us come up.
Okay.
Councilmember Courtney, do you have questions on this item?
First of all, this is a case where I don't have any qualms about the potential for future use of things. The triangle that we're looking at, given that we'd already sold the property to the northwest of it, I cannot conceive of anything that we would want that property for or need that for going forward. And because of the way it's situated, to me, that has no effect on the open feel of the neighborhood. Couple of questions about the oval area, related to the oval areas here. First, those are actually the only concern I would have with the sale, really, is that I believe that this was a completely unintentional encroachment. But it does disturb me when somebody has encroached on city land to simply sell that city land at the same price that we do everything else. I'm not going to belabor that because I believe I am alone on the council on this point. So, but my question about it is the creek that runs through there. Is there anything with regard to selling this that potentially causes us problems? Because we route water down that creek, don't we? Is that what I recall from the staff packet?
Yep. Irrigation pond.
Right off. And yeah, when we empty our ponds.
So what we're talking about selling along there is really along the edge of the creek. It doesn't intrude into the creek at all, is that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the intent, to allow Mr. Louder to kind of reinforce the bank right there where he's had some overflow and erosion into his lot.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't something else we needed to think about, so perfect. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Campbell, anything in addition to what you've said?
Yes, I support the idea that we just, I mean, a lot of questions get answered by it depends. What's the answer? Well, it depends. And on this, should it be the usable space or should it be the entire all the way down to the bottom of the rocks? If it weren't for those rocks, that river would have washed a lot of things out. So the rocks actually maintained the path that was there before to ensure that it remained there. So I'm comfortable in this particular case of going with usable space.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Can I ask Doug a question? Councilman Courtney?
Sure.
And if I'm in a good mood, I'm going
If
to
you're
answer.
in a good mood today. No, I just, so, I mean, I appreciate what both of you said, and I'm hearing it. I don't see anything wrong with this, but is this enough for you to vote no?
No.
Okay. I really don't. I think he's put up with a lot on this, frankly, for a while. The rocks, and I did come up, but you weren't there. So just so you know, so the rocks that are there, I'm just curious, did the city put those in, or did he put those in? We put it, okay. No, I really don't have anything. I don't have a problem with this.
Councilmember Rodella.
I'm ready for a motion.
Perfect. Go for it.
I'll let you do it, Scott.
Okay. I'd like to make the motion. So I move that Highland City Council approve the attached resolution declaring the city-owned property with improvements on them adjacent to the property owned by Rick Lauder as an orphan parcel and direct staff to move forward with the sale of that property. And I'm going to put a stipulation in that we go forth with the survey and define what's usable and unusable to a degree, as Ron has said. So I think there can be some kind of mediation.
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay.
And I will second that.
I want to do whatever you guys feel fair. This is not Jay dictating policy. So
Appreciate that.
absolutely, yeah.
Perfect. So that was a motion by Councilmember Smith, and I think Councilwoman Rice seconded it.
And while we're voting, I just have one quick little smart-ass comment. That you talked about the flooding in bad snow years. Lately, we think of those actually as good snow years.
Well, it looks like that passes 5-0. Hey, Jay,
Yes.
this is like a difficult job, and we appreciate all your work that
Yes,
goes
we
into
do.
it.
We
So
appreciate it.
thank you, and thank you
it-
to the Louders. They've been more than patient.
Yeah.
And he kind of took on Aaron's
Mr.
stuff
Lauder's
too
been
today.
great to work with. Some of the people I come in contact aren't so much. So
And you took on
I
Aaron's
really
stuff
appreciate-
today too, and I
appreciate
really
them.
appreciated you doing
Yeah.
that.
Thanks, Jay.
I would
the
like to
truth.
thank Councilman Smith for inviting me to join you with Jay on this so that I can be educated on it. It really helps, so thank
Yeah,
you.
super helped.
Can I make one other comment?
Of course.
One thing I think you need to know about the Louders is there was some discussion about whether there was some encroachment on the property north of them, and they remedied anything and redid all of their landscaping to fix any concerns. And I think, and they did that at great expense. And I appreciate citizens that try to be good neighbors. And I suggested one of the better things was to have some sort of fence between, because I think fences make good neighbors. And we used to be neighbors, although we had a road between us. But anyhow, at the same time, I appreciate all of the work they've done, because Rick's told me many times we want to do this right. And some of this encroachment was inadvertent, and they didn't really understand. And the property lines, when you go up there, are crazy. So I don't know how you keep them straight, so.
Much appreciated. If you ever decide to sell, Kim and I will go battle.
That's a,
already called it.
that's a beautiful,
There
I call
before
it,
you.
I
beautiful
call it.
home and a beautiful backyard.
I went there
Hey,
before you.
hey, don't you want more employees to live in Highland? I would like to be at the top of that list.
Thank you, Louders. Okay, we're
Thank
moving
you.
on to item E. I think Rob is going to do a brief presentation, then Councilmember Courtney and Rice will let you add any other comments.
Thank you, Mayor. This was an item requested by the council members Courtney and Rice, and per the policies, staff does a review and provides a staff report and a recommendation, or at least highlight any concerns we might have. And with this one, we don't have any particular concerns. So this deals with elected officer compensation, follows up on the discussion we had regarding elected officials' wages with the budget process. Under state law, it's pretty bare bones what's required. It just says you adopt an ordinance and you hold a hearing and you can do whatever you'd like. There's no timing or any kind of other restrictions on it. There's been a proposed ordinance drafted by Councilmember Courtney that would add additional procedures to this, similar to what we do for staff officials when we do the public hearing and we have the notice that goes out for that, essentially applying similar rules to the elected officials as well. So it clarifies what's included in compensation, including benefits and stipends and things of that nature. It requires a hearing prior to the final or amended budget that would include those wages, and requires a specific notice of that hearing. At least a 7-day, has to have certain language to make sure people are clued in that this is about the elected officials' compensation. And the ordinance had two different options regarding how to publish the notice. One was just pointing to state law, say, do the notice required by state law. Option 2 would actually just kind of more or less copy the state law and put that into the ordinance. As staff review, and the other couple options that were presented for consideration was, should we add additional notice requirements such as a social media notice or a citywide mailer? Staff doesn't have any concerns with this. Option 2, the restating of state law, copying the actual notice process, was slightly preferred, just because that way we can look at the ordinance and know exactly what we need to do in case state law sometimes changes and we don't always remember to catch it. And then as to the additional notices, generally don't love when additional notices, because sometimes we forget to do that. We try to track, especially around budget time, but whatever the council wants to do, we'll be happy to comply with and follow. So, and with that, that's the completion of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Courtney, do you want to add anything?
Just briefly, that I think Rob made it clear that basically this is simply taking the existing code for changing compensation for executive officers and copying it into municipal code and requiring that we use that same process for compensation changes for elected officials. There were a couple of changes. One was just a language that the state statute says a legislative body, and I changed that to the city council because that seemed to make a lot more sense. One, I added in specific language to use in the notice, just so it's clear what we're really talking about, as Rob said. And then the definition of what is compensation is changed from the version in state law, because there were some pieces there, such as deferred compensation, that didn't seem to make any sense at all to me for elected officials in Highland. If at some point in the future, which I can barely conceive of the possibility, but if at some point in the future we decided we wanted a full-time council, maybe that changes. But I don't see that happening, and I think that's far enough down the road that there's no reason to include some of the things that don't make sense. And so there are a couple of things that I added in. Frankly, I went out and Googled what are common compensation for elected officials in Utah, and basically pulled those items and dropped them in, just to make it more applicable for elected officials. I'm perfectly good with option 2, the just copy and paste out. If that's what staff prefers, that would be my preference as well. I find it bizarre in state law that we have to go through specific notification processes. We have to have a separate public hearing when we are providing an across-the-board 1% COLA to all of our employees, and yet we have to go through these requirements and for the executive officers, and yet we have none of those same requirements for elected officers. I think we should at least maintain that same process. It is at least as important for the public to know that we're considering a pay increase for us as it is that we are considering a pay increase for our city administrator, for example.
Okay. Councilmember Rice, because your name was on this item, I'll let you go next.
So I encouraged Doug to do this even a little bit more harshly, so this is kind of a compromise for me, a little bit, right? We talked about a step down a little bit. So, but I just think more transparency is better. I did take a little bit of heat for voting yes for the mayor, but I tried to explain to people for your wages that it really has become a full-time job. But I just think the more transparency that we have, for elected officials. I just think it's a better look and better, and I appreciate Doug bringing me in on this. He's brilliant, and it was just well done, in my opinion, so that's all.
Yes, I have a particular brilliance when it comes to copy and pasting.
Well done. Councilmember Campbell, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, on the 3,000 for the citywide mailer, is that required for the executive staff?
No.
No.
So that's in addition.
That was an option that, hey, for doing notice, here's a different type of notice we could provide, as I understand Councilmember Courtney. Don't mean to put words in your mouth. We just wanted to provide, if you wanted to do this, there's a slight cost. But
no, the core ordinance that is being proposed does not include a citywide mailer, and it does not include social media notification. Those are listed separately as two amendments that potentially council would like to, but frankly, I thought that the main ordinance was something that we could plausibly get general support on. I suspect we do not get support on the other two, which is why I simply included them below. If anyone wants to add those in, feel free to make a motion to amend. I don't intend to make them because I don't think they're going to pass.
Well,
Yeah, I think you're right.
And if I may, for a public hearing, we get more response from a mailer than we do from a public hearing most of the time. And I'm not a spendthrift, certainly, but that's why I like that, so.
Okay. Councilmember Campbell, do you have any other comments?
No, just that I don't like that, so.
I also do not like the mailer, but I also do not get a vote. Councilmember Rodella?
I guess, first of all, this isn't a priority for me, so I'm not quite sure why we have this on our agenda. We're using staff time for this. I'm all about transparency, but I don't think we should create a special set of procedural hurdles for one issue when we already have state law that helps it be transparent. We have public agendas, we have open meetings, we post our agendas, we have public accountability. If we start adding extra hearings, special notices, social media requirements, mailers for $3,000, which is a complete waste of money, we should ask, what are we creating precedent for? Are we going to do this for every significant decision we make? I think good government means we have clear, consistent procedures, and we don't do different rules depending on the topic. And so what it comes down to is precedent. Where do you draw the line of making different rules for different topics just because you feel like it's more of a priority for you than for something else? I'm absolutely against option 2 of wasting our money on citywide mailers on this. I always like to defer to state ordinances as well. I think being up at the legislature, being up at the state government, seeing bills that are being made in which people think that they're doing it to solve a problem that isn't even a problem, and then eventually you have more bills to solve the problem of that bill that was trying to solve a problem that wasn't a problem. It's a rolling effect right here, and that's exactly what this is right now, is trying to solve a problem that isn't even a problem.
Councilmember Smith?
Okay, I'll make some comments. First of all, I really appreciate the input of everyone here and the different opinions and things. I appreciate all the work that the staff's done on this, as well as Doug and Liz kind of bringing it forth. So I just want to ask a couple questions. One, I assume that any changes in compensation for the council and mayor would occur with the passage of the budget, right? So this year we did give the mayor an increase. And I think, so that would happen at the time of the budgetary thing. So if we were going to make increases in salary for the council, and we've discussed reasons why we didn't do that this year, but we haven't really had much of an increase for like 16 years. So at some point we'll have to address that. But I think the purpose, if I understand this, Doug, is just to kind of clarify the code and to make it more transparent. Is that right? So the process we would do is we'd have discussions and we'd pass the the tentative budget. It would be part of that, then the final budget. So we would have public hearings in that, and what you're discussing is trying to make it more transparent that people understand it's going on. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, I'm looking to standardize it, really. That right now we have different rules for different raises.
Right.
And I think that the rules that we have in place, that the state mandates for our executive officers, that we should have those same rules for increases for our elected officers.
So you want to standardize and then make things, because
And-
what I heard
yes.
Councilwoman Rice said is she wants things more transparent.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I think that's the point behind both the executive officer rules in state code and this, yes.
So the purpose of this is not to increase opposition to any increases, but mainly to increase transparency so it can be discussed beforehand, so that people basically don't feel like they're getting, all of a sudden the council's raising all their, And even though, and I think, and we've talked about this, I think some of this would be very justified. So I just wanted to clarify what the purpose of this was. And, okay.
And I would also like to say, I think it's important when we do something like this to listen to what staff is saying, and what may seem like a small ask of their time turns into something bigger over time. And I just think it's really important that we recognize that all the small things we do added together take up additional staff time, and their preference is to not do anything beyond state law. Councilmember Courtney, did you want to respond to any of that?
No, I'm good.
Anybody else like to, any further comments? If not, we are ready for a motion.
I move that the city council reject the proposed ordinance regarding elected officer compensation.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilwoman Rodella and a second by Councilmember Campbell, and this motion is to reject the amendment.
So if you vote yes, you're rejecting?
Correct. Okay, and that motion fails.
I move to adopt the resolution, thank you, the proposed ordinance regarding elected officer compensation, specifically with option 2.
Can we amend that slightly by removing the $3,000 mayor? How do you feel about that?
That isn't in
That's not
the
in?
proposed ordinance option 2.
Wait, if they already rejected the motion, then why are we holding a second vote?
I thought the motion to reject failed.
Failed.
It did fail.
So
It
we
did,
don't,
so we need another.
Oh,
So it
we need
passed.
we don't have a decision on it.
Okay.
There's no decision. So now we have to redo? Or?
So can we clarify exactly what your motion is? Just,
Yeah, let me pull up here. The motion is to adopt the ordinance for elective officer compensation, which is on page 77 of the agenda packet. Option 2, which is the one that's on the second page, which would include only the core ordinance, not the possible amendments. And the possible
the
amendments
amendments, yeah,
are posting to social media and mailing to Highland City addresses. So neither one of those would be part of it.
okay.
Stephanie, are you clear on the motion?
I really don't want to read that back to you, but I think what you meant to say, what we're trying to say here is that we're going to follow the state requirements. Is that what we're doing in option 2?
That is largely in option 2. Now, my motion is simply to adopt the ordinance with option 2.
Okay, that's clear.
But
Thank
yes.
you.
But not the requirement for notification with the mailer. and-
Right, that is not included
That's
in
not part
option
of the
2.
motion.
That is not part of option
Okay.
2.
So on this one, what more are we doing? I just want to see what more are we doing on staff?
We are doing exactly the same things that we need to do, that we do for executive officer compensation changes now, with the one change that there is specific text that we need to use in the notice. But aside from that, it is exactly the same as the.
So we're making it all consistent.
Right.
Okay, so we've got a motion. Did we have a second?
Second?
Okay, that was Councilmember Courtney with a motion and Councilwoman Rice with the second.
You will need to do a roll call.
Okay, and we will start with Councilmember Rice.
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell.
No.
Courtney.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Rodella.
No.
Okay, and that passes 3-2. Okay, we're moving on to our expedited items. These are ones that we've heard before, but this first one is a public hearing ordinance with the approval of the dog park. So we'll go ahead and, Rob, is that you? And then we can hear from the applicant if he has anything additional.
Yes, this is me. And again, I apologize to the applicant that I failed to notice this as a public hearing before and made you come back again. But now you got to hear more council meetings, which I know is everyone's greatest delight. So thank you for coming. So this was an item continued from the last meeting so we could hold a public hearing. Just as a brief, this is an expedited, so I just have a brief proposal presentation. It is to allow a new business used within the R140 zone for private dog training recreation. I have a list of conditions to try to mitigate potential concerns with this use, including they have to have a business license, the animal and dog code applies. I tweaked the language a little bit just to make sure it was consistent. The property has to be fenced, the property has to be maintained, irrigated, and cleaned to not be a nuisance. Hours of operation would be limited from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Dogs limited to the number of small animals allowed for the lot, so if you have an acre, that's 24, and that there is no boarding, overnight keeping of dogs. There is currently no proposed parking or traffic conditions. There was a discussion and then some email follow-up regarding adding a parking condition to this use. I put the language in there that all parking relating to this use must be provided on site, and there'll be no more than 20 vehicular trips per day generated or associated with this use. Just so, looking at this wouldn't stop the applicant's proposed use. They're proposing to essentially bus in dogs. That's 2 trips a day. So this wouldn't keep them from doing what they want to do. It's more of a, I think the intent was to future-proof it in case someone else tried to do this in a different place and everyone was driving in, dropping off dogs all day long. We have no concern with adding this condition. I did publish this as a public hearing this time, and we received no comments on it. So this is a public hearing, we have the applicant, and we recommend approval. I guess up to the council, but we didn't see a reason to deny it, I should say more accurately.
Perfect, thank you. Does the applicant have anything further to add that we didn't talk about last time? Do you want to go ahead and remind us of your name?
Cal Farr, K-A-L Farr, F-A-R-R.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your service. I know what long times you spend, and these guys over here too. So we feel like we have really an ideal place. I don't know in the future what they're going to have, but there's nobody that even can see or hear the dogs down there. It's shaded. We've got all the fence up. We've got running water, a stream already down there for them. It's going to be a great place for the dogs to go. So, as the business owner, I just supply the land. So.
I might add, we're looking forward to the fling and having our pup bus in the parade.
Nice, love it. Love it. Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Does anybody have, that was so timid. We're gonna do better. Anybody have any comments? Nope, we can go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back. Does council have anything else they would like to say? We've talked about this before. So we can have discussion, or if somebody's ready, we can have a motion.
I'm ready for a motion.
Perfect.
I move that City Council adopt the proposed ordinance creating a new business use for private dog training and recreation in the R140 zone.
I'll second.
That was Councilmember Rodella with the motion. Councilmember Rice seconded. And we can go ahead and vote.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I move to amend the motion to add a 18H with the text, all parking related to this use must be provided on site, and there should be no more than 20 vehicular trips per day generated or associated with this use.
Do you accept the amendment?
I'll second.
No. I'm sorry, I don't know who's going to count 20 trips.
Okay, so
You never know.
do we need an alternate motion then, or do we vote on Kim? No, we need an alternate motion.
Withdraw the motion.
I think, why don't we vote on the amendment first?
You just vote on the amendment, right?
We just vote on the amendment.
Okay, so the amendment is the limit on the trips.
Right. And my reason for that is that based on what they're talking about, it's not going to affect anything. But if we adopt this ordinance, every single home in the R140 zone could start this business. And I think that we want to require that parking be on site because we're allowing up to, what is it? If you think 2 shifts, like we're talking about in this case, we're allowing up to 48 dogs per parcel. I just think we need to put some controls around it with regard to parking being on site and number of visits like we do with home occupations. I'm not sold on a particular number of 20 or how, but I just, since we're making a permitted use across the entire R140 zone, I'm concerned by not putting any restrictions around it.
Any further discussion on that?
I just wonder how you define the restriction. So I actually like this, Doug, because you're right. I mean, this may be the only dog park we have in the city, but this allows it throughout the whole city, and parking becomes a problem. I mean, in my neighborhood, we've got a big problem right now that I'm trying to work through, because if we had an emergency, you could not get down some of our streets because there are so many cars parked on them, because people are running illegal home businesses. And so I guess the question that I have in my mind is, are we going to have to go back and define some of this in a future thing? I think it's a very valid concern.
Honestly, the reason I picked this particular language is because I asked Rob if there was anything we could do to manage parking and trips, and he suggested this language.
So this is like reasonable, significant, and, okay, sounds great.
Except it has an actual number.
I could reword it to include both of those terms in it if you would like.
Get all that stuff.
Okay, so what do we need to do? We've got our motion by Kim, but we have the motion the amendment by Doug.
I second.
I'm wondering, how are you going to monitor somebody doing 20 trips?
What we would do is probably how we handle home occupations, which is we'd wait for someone to complain, and then at that point, we would send someone out to actually count trips. We did that with the Alpine Food Storage business. Once we got the complaint, we had someone actually go out and count, and this is an excessive amount. At that time, our code was very loose, like Councilmember Smith, it was, don't generate an unreasonable amount, and
Yeah.
I had an argument with the lawyer about what that meant, so that's why we put in a number, so we could say, now you have 40 trips, that's well over this limit.
So is a trip going there and then going back?
That's
Is that
2 trips.
1 or 2?
2 trips.
Well, if you have 48 dogs, wait a minute.
So this encourages it to be bused
That's right.
or
Okay.
carpooled,
I forgot.
dog-pooled, I guess.
Dog
Okay, so now we need to vote on the amendment. And we'll go ahead and do it. It sounds like there are going to be a couple votes, so we'll just go voice vote. Is that good enough? Okay. Let's start with you, Councilman Rodella. This is voting on the amendment.
Cupcakes.
All right, yes.
Yes.
I swayed. I swayed.
Yes.
Food.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now we need to vote on the original motion.
As
And
amended.
And we can do electronic voting here. So, and this was the same motion then that was Councilwoman Rodella right? Or do we need a new one?
With the change that we
With
just
the
made.
change?
It's been
Yep.
amended, yeah.
And then that was Councilwoman.
I'm assuming Stephanie got all that, right?
Yep. Sell out. We can go ahead and do a voice vote with,
I think it went through.
okay, that passes 5-0. Feel free to come back anytime. We won't take that personally. We're happy to have you. We'll be happy to have you at the parade. Okay, let's move on to expedited item 4B. This is Chris's first appearance tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is a reimbursement agreement between Highland City and Ivory Homes to pay for a portion of improvements to 10100 North next to Lone Peak, and between Lone Peak and the Ridgeview subdivision. We had wanted to kind of do some of this as the subdivision was going in, but the city didn't have sufficient funds, and one of the other developers that was party to that kind of agreement that we had backed out. So at this point, as they're finishing off their last phase, we want to revisit that as we've tried to look at a way to rebuild this roadway to where it actually drains and has a proper crown to it. The best way is to just kind of reshape the asphalt roadway. We won't be removing the curb and gutter on the north side. They'll be installing curb and gutter on the south side. We have remaining fund balance from the funds that we got from Utah County for the 10400 project of about $273,000. Our costs for this reimbursement would be somewhere in $145,000, which includes the 10% over the estimates that we've got. We've actually refined those numbers a little bit better with their contractor since 3 o'clock this afternoon. And I think the costs are actually going to go down closer to probably 100, but the reimbursement agreement had that amount in there, and since we're still kind of refining through some of that, we thought it'd be better to leave it in there and come under what we had. But if the city council chooses to go along with that, we would still have around $130,000 left from those funds from Utah County that we could use for another road project somewhere else within the city. And that's all for my presentation, Mayor.
Okay, perfect. This is an expedited item, so we can take a motion, or if anybody has questions, Dr.
I have a
Smith.
question. Let me clarify in my mind. So Ivory Homes isn't responsible for any of this?
They're responsible for, if we go back to that, the areas in pink, so that whole south section of it, it's the existing roadway that they're not responsible to do anything with. But the existing grades on the asphalt kind of would create two separate crowns. You know, it just doesn't quite match up to what we can do without, you know, really roller coastering the road and try to get something to work. So they're actually probably more of a 60% to our 40% on the improvements as we've looked at.
Oh, okay. So, you know, that all comes into Knight Avenue.
Yes.
And of course, the roundabout is how you direct traffic down into the Highland Glen.
Mm-hmm.
So that road going into Highland Glen, is there potential of using any of the savings here to fix that up? Because it's far enough from the neighborhood there that I don't think they're responsible, but yet the road itself could use some repair work. Is that a possibility? I'm just throwing that out.
Absolutely a possibility, and I think actually a good idea to use it on some of the.
Because it would seem like if you had the two projects coordinated, it might have some cost savings.
Yeah, there might not be as much cost savings unless we're able to contract with Skip Dunn. We're getting some savings on this because Ivory Homes is already contracting with Skip Dunn to do their internal subdivision work, so we're getting some economy of scale by piggybacking on that, but it's through their contract that they already have with them. So we might be able to get something out of them, but it might be more appropriate to actually make some improvements, go out to bid on it, and get some other bids in. I don't know if we can count on those additional savings by going with Skip Dunn.
Okay, we can take other questions, or we can take a motion.
I have So I know we went through this before, but I've thought a lot about this. So we're paying Ivory Homes $145,000 back. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so what happens to the $128,000?
We can come to the council with other ideas of where we might want to use that. Councilmember Smith suggested perhaps in Highland Glen, which I think makes a lot of sense.
The road to Highland
Okay.
Glen.
But
And
basically, we keep that in our pocket.
For now.
Basically, we keep that $130,000 in our pocket.
I know what other cities do with developers, and they really have to pay for all road improvements and everything. And I mean, I appreciate your work on this, Chris, but I've thought a lot about this since the last time we saw this. But it bothers me a little bit that we have to pay them back money when they are coming in. It just slightly bothers me. So I understand, I'm not opposed to it, but, I mean, I know like when certain religions go in and they put up a large church, they are responsible for all traffic going in and out. And those are city streets. So just something we might consider down the road. That's all.
Okay. Any other discussion or a motion?
I'll make the motion. I move that the Highland City Council approve the reimbursement agreement between Ivory Homes and Highland City for the city's portion of improvements to be made on 10100 North in an amount up to $145,673.30. And I assume that includes a contingency?
That is correct.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's a motion by Councilmember Smith and a second by Councilmember Campbell.
And while we're voting, Chris, did I correctly understand that we may come in below this, but wherever it comes, we're going to limit it to the work that we're paying out of this to the scope that we're talking about here? If we come in at $100,000, we're not going to find something else to do with the other 45. That just goes back into our pocket.
It goes back to the pocket.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
The city's pocket.
The city's pocket.
Excellent clarification. I'm thinking about this because I don't want to set a precedent of this constantly going on. Yeah, I know, it's working. I'm not.
Okay, that passes 5-0. We will move on to item 4C,
The
truth and taxation.
Yeah, the
of
property
regular
tax
agenda
impact
item.
schedule. This is a present from the legislature that keeps on giving. So this is a tool whatever you want to call it, that they developed for us to use to communicate what is going on with our truth and taxation if we are elect to do so. And so in the interest of making this ever as accurate as possible, we have made just a few updates to that. So updated estimated revenue from the county was $172,488. So any numbers where that sum contains that number, that was also updated. The county also rounded the residential property valuation to $1,036,000 from $1,036,469. And then the Utah County Auditor's new valuation for commercial business property went to $2,177,845, which is up from $1.7 million. So this is what the property tax impact statement or schedule looks like now.
There is one additional change that was made, that in the past we were using last year's certified rate of 0.000097, and that's been updated as generally happens as home values go up, the rate goes down. So that's gone down 2 points in this PTIS.
0.000095.
It was 9.7, it is now 9.5. And I'm assuming that's because we got updated numbers from the county as to what if we didn't make any changes, what the rate would be for this year.
We tried to be clear that everything we were working with was based off of estimates. We were previously using the city's own estimated revenues that were in our budget for this year, and then once the county released their version, their numbers, of property tax receipts, then we use that instead. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. We can go ahead and take a motion if there's not any further discussion.
I'll make a motion.
I move, go ahead.
No, Ron, you.
Yeah, all right. I move that the Highland City Council adopt resolution approving the revised property tax impact schedule.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Campbell with the motion, Councilmember Rodella with the second, and Councilmember Courtney with a clarification.
One question that just occurred to me. This is the version that will be going out with the property tax notices.
Yes, we do
Correct.
not anticipate any further changes.
We don't need to do anything to specify that going out. That just happens, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that passes 4-1. And moving on to communication items, we already did item 5A and 5B, so we are on to item 5C. We're going to actually get to it this time, Councilmember Campbell. Let's do it.
Well, this has to do with the fence that was installed by the developer that did not meet the requirements that would have been required had he asked for a fence permit. He did not ask for a fence permit, and as such, the fence is not compliant with what we have along a trail corridor, which is the 60-40 open. This is 100% blocked off. So just a comment about that. I did some research with the installer of that particular fence of what it would cost to convert this to the proper fence. And it's not as much as you might imagine. It's taking the end caps off, which are silicone sealed on, and some cement that has to be chipped off where they filled a little indent section on each pillar. Take those caps off, pick it up, take it away. It's still usable anyplace else. It's not destroying that portion of the fence, and installing the new fence. Or they said that it could be cut, and another addition, the 40% being added to the top. Both of them are available to, I don't think we care which one they do, but in my opinion, I think we do care that it be done properly.
Councilmember Rice, do you have anything to add to that?
I do. I actually, when I met with Travis out there, and that's kind of new information. So I thought Kim's name was on this originally. Maybe that's why she had hers removed. But I went out there. It's not along a trail. I don't think that fence is bothering anybody. And granted, I don't think I even knew that they didn't take out a permit for that fence. I just think I think we're gouging the developer or the homeowner. My understanding is that property has been sold to a potential home builder there. I think it's silly to make them take it down. It's a beautiful fence. There's not going to be a trail there. It's a trail to nowhere. And actually, I thought we were going to kind of talk about, well, in my opinion, that might even be considered orphan property along that back fence on the other side. But I know that staff, what we've talked about, that there's a little piece of property that we own there's a little ditch on that end that we own as well, but that will never be a trail. And I don't know why we keep building trails when we can't maintain them. So I don't think this is bothering anybody at all. And I see it silly to gouge somebody to make, and to Ron's point, it's not that much money. I don't know what we're talking. Anything to me is a big amount lately. But I think it just needs to be left. And we need to stop this. That's all.
And let me ask, this is just a communication item. So is there anything, what are we hoping to come out of this, Rob? or J, either one.
Well, we
Lively
started kind of
conversation, or?
a code compliance process, and it's kind of been on hold until we know what the council wants to do.
Gotcha.
Ultimately. So.
Okay.
I have some additional
So-
comments, if it's all right.
Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll move on to Councilmember Rodella.
Okay.
Wait, Ron's going to say something else.
Just that that is a trail corridor. I mean, we can choose to abandon it, but we've not chosen to abandon it. So if the other neighbors, those 3 homes, decide to put up a fence, are we not going to allow them to put up a privacy fence? And then we've got 2 6-foot fences on each side, and really, there's no openness. We're an open space community, and we had that open space for a reason. Trail corridor or not, it's still open space. And the fence that's going on the south end does have that 60-40 split. So all we're asking is that they match what they did on the south end with the west fence. To me, the developer, and to me this on the developer, I don't see how the homeowner would be required to do this. The developer did not get a permit. He's in violation. And the fact that he's a previous employee, I don't want a headline in the newspaper saying that we were soft on a previous employee that actually was in a position that you're in, Chris, that is the current developer, and we let him off the hook when he didn't get a fence permit. And he did not put the proper fence in, knowing, in my opinion, I really truly believe, had he put a fence permit in, we would have denied it for this fence that he ended up putting in. So to hold him accountable to that, to me, it's unconscionable not to.
Okay, Councilwoman Rodella.
Oh, I just want to clarify, I didn't put my name on this item or take it off. I just was not involved in any of that. But can you go back to where it goes into the trail, goes into the, okay, right there. So I was along the same lines as Liz of saying we don't need this trail, it goes to nowhere, it drops off. When I did meet with Erin, she did actually say that the trail could go to this area and you could do tiered steps and actually have it go into a trail, go to the next area. I mean, the next picture. So go through here and then connect to the trail down in that area. Is that true or no?
Yeah, I think, it definitely wouldn't be an asphalt trail. It'd be more of a forest trail, something more like what you'd see with Brandon's trail up in Beacon Hills or something. But absolutely, you could put in, railroad ties, steps to go down there, and then it could.
And then do a Brandon's Trail kind of thing?
Kind of thing, yeah. Down to, Dry Creek Reservoir or something along those lines.
Okay.
So what's, hang on 1 minute. So what's your opinion then, Kim?
Oh, man, I mean, I love that you could have a Brandon's Trail area in this. I'm along with Liz, though. We don't do a great job of maintaining trails. Do we need more trails? But I want this option to be open. Also, at the same time, it's 3 houses. Do we really need to have that type of privacy fence along there? To be honest, I have no opinion on this. So if you could make that decision, I'd appreciate it for me.
I would make all.
I get 2 votes.
Dr. Smith, what do you think?
I don't know.
So, this is a dilemma, and I agree with all the comments been made. I understand where Ron's coming from, because I think it's very unfortunate that a former employee, we won't mention names, who well knows the code and different things, didn't apply for a fence permit. I just think that's unfortunate, because we could have clarified a lot of this ahead of time. I agree, though, with Councilwoman Rice, and I think I'm carrying that a little bit from Councilwoman Rodella. We have a lot of trails and trail corridors in this city, and we love our trails and stuff, but this one, and I was joking with Doug about this, I said this trail will probably never be built till the middle of the millennium. And one of the reasons why is because we don't have the full easement for the trail because there's a property that's there and it may not happen anytime soon. So right now it's kind of a dead-end trail, as Councilwoman Rice said. The question I keep having in my mind is, what do those 3 properties along there want? Because they now have a privacy fence, even though there's a trail corridor there, but they have a privacy fence between them and this new neighborhood. So I'd like to know what they would say if we said, okay, we're going to take the top part of the fence out, and maybe, Ron, you've talked to him, I don't know. So that's a question, and it is an expense, but Ron's absolutely right. If we start saying precedents, the developer can just do what they want to do, and then we say, oh, it's okay. So I'm kind of right in the middle like Kim is. I'm sorry I can't give you a definitive thing, because I can make an argument on both sides.
Good, I get 3 votes.
And so yes, Liz gets 3 votes now. But the thing is I just think, one, it's unfortunate that the developer did not get a fence permit so we could have resolved this. 2, I don't think this trail will ever happen, to be honest. And 3, I worry about the expense of tearing the fence down and whether the people that are bordering on that would actually be opposed to that, because now they have their own privacy fence. So I would like to know better what the people along there, and I think, Ron, you've maybe talked to some of the folks.
I did too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ron. Go
Okay.
ahead,
Well,
sorry.
when I talked to them, it was early on, and they were surprised that they felt like if they were to request a fence on the back of their property, we would require them. And so they're very concerned, and that's the right word, I think. And I only spoke to 2 of the 3. But both of them were similar in the fact that if we wanted to put a 6-foot fence in, you'd tell us no. So why would you allow them to do that? Why did they put that in? And I didn't get into the details. They didn't ask for a fence permit, so we didn't have a say in it. But that was their feeling, is that what's good for the goose isn't really good for the gander.
Okay. Doug, if you had anything, and then Liz, I know that Liz had a comment.
Go ahead.
We could end up with 3 abstentions on this one. I see strong arguments on both sides, although one of them is somewhat less strong based on Ron's comments. That I agree. I don't believe that we're going to be putting a trail in there. If we do, it's going to be way, way down in the future. I like maintaining the land because I think it gives us access to the ravine if we need it for whatever reason. But and my suspicion was that the residents would much prefer to have the 6-foot fence there than to have an open top on it. And so both of those are plausible arguments in favor of, okay, let's just leave it like it is. The other side, I have a really, really difficult time just saying, oh, well, that's okay, leave it like it is. When we have a developer who just ignores code and builds whatever they feel like building. And to me, whether or not there was someone who was previously involved with the city who was a part of that group, it really isn't a big concern to me. When 10700 was coming in and we're told that, no, you can't have roof overhangs, and they built them anyway, and then wanted us to just be okay with it, I was really strongly opposed to that, because you don't just get to ignore what the code says. You don't get to ignore things and then just expect us to be okay with it, because once we start down that path, we might as well not have an awful lot of our code, because once developers understand that as long as they get it up before we complain about it, we're just going to let them keep it, then that provides an incentive to just ignore things that are inconvenient. And I don't want to provide that incentive. Because of that, I probably end up in favor of requiring a change on the fence, but I'm very close to being, if you'll excuse the expression, on the fence on this one.
Councilmember Rice, go ahead.
So, let's start with this. So, the 3 homes along there have planted grass. And I think there's 2 maintenance agreements. Staff can correct me on that, but I think, as I recall, there's 2 maintenance agreements with that, and talking with, again, 2 out of 3, and I can't remember which. I think it was the middle house I didn't get an answer at. They would prefer it stay. To Ron's point, he is right. On the trail side, there is a drop of 4, I believe it's 4 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, where you can see through to the trail. That doesn't make sense on that backside of those properties. This property has already been sold. If it hadn't been sold, and you know me, I'm not really a lover of developers, and I would say yeah, except in this case, and I you know, and the way before, I mean, I don't know Travis. I don't know what the agreement was before, whether it was verbal or what. We know for a fact that there's been verbal agreements before with developers. But this picture that Kim pointed out, and I appreciate her comments, but this goes down a ways. And my understanding is that would have to be not just railroad ties, sorry, but it would have to be a bridge that would have to cross over there. And, you know, and I'm kind of been put in charge of trails, and I've been really working with residents, and like I said before, our idea of maintenance and their idea of maintenance is 2 things. When you go down that Foxwood Trail and you turn to the left, those people had all of that. Indeed, it was probably considered encroachment at the time, but they had to rip it out before they served an LDS mission, and it created they had like 3 weeks to do it, and it looks awful now. It just looks awful. So it's not maintained. They were told that there would be some rock and some other things, which we're trying to work on right now, but you need to understand that we're not going to have a trail there, so there's no need to drop it 4 feet. If we were going to have a trail there, then I'd say, oh, okay, I get why you want the 4 feet, because that's what open space does. That's what we have designed the trails along there to do. But this is, you know, matter of fact, in my opinion, it should probably be put up as orphan property for those residents to purchase, but that's their choice, not mine and staff's choice. So I just think it's silly to create this, and I can't imagine anybody, a developer or the city, going to a now new property owner and saying, oh, by the way, you've got to drop that open, you've got to open that 4 feet. So in this case, I am willing to make an exception, because you probably won't see me do this again in the next 3.5 years.
Okay. Ron,
First of all, clarification, would this be required of the developer or the current, if it is sold? I don't know that it's sold, but
Travis said it's sold.
would it be the developer or the homeowner?
Homeowner.
The homeowner. How does the developer get away with this? We can't hold him accountable for violating our code.
The requirement is that the owner of the property obtain a fence permit before installing it. Millhaven was the owner of the property. They installed the fence. They've sold it. They've moved on. This, I think, happened 2 years ago now at this point. So it's we've talked about this in other scenarios with fences. The fence contractor does things without a permit and they do things wrong. We talk to the homeowner because that's who's ultimately responsible. The homeowner is in a bad situation because now they're caught between the city saying, hey, you did this wrong, you're gonna have to pay money to fix this. And they say, well, my contractor said it. I'm sorry.
Well, this is a developer that put that fence in before he sold that property.
Okay, I think we've got a work session and we've got several other items. So I think we know where Councilwoman Rice stands. I think Councilmember Courtney or Councilmember Campbell, your view is fairly clear. So let's see what the rest of council says.
GL Thornton LLC is not the developer, correct?
Correct.
That being the case, there's nothing we can do to effectively hold the developer accountable.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with keeping the
So,
fence as it is.
Leave it as it is. Okay.
I will amend mine. If this really is on the homeowner, I do not want to put this on the homeowner. I want to go after the developer and hold him accountable, period. And if we can't do that, if you're telling me we can't do that, to me, there's got to be a way we can do that. But if we can't, then I do not support changing this fence.
Bring him in, Rob.
Figure out a way.
It sounds like you've got your answer, unless Councilmember Smith or Rodella wants to add anything else. Dr. Smith, anything else?
Well, again, I'm kind of right down the middle here, and I understand Rod's previous arguments. I understand Liz's as well. But if it comes down to being on the homeowner to fix this fence, I'd say no.
Okay. Kim?
I still want a Brandon's Trail scenario here, so, if that influences not being able to potentially put that there, then I say that the developer has to change it, but if it doesn't and we still can allow a trail behind there into a Brandon's Trail type of scenario, then that's what I'd prefer.
Sounds like you've got your answer. Yes? Okay, Councilmember Smith, would you like to talk about the Run Club?
Okay. Okay. So I just asked that we just discuss this a little bit to kind of help some of the newer people on the council on that, because again, the Run Club, I support it 100%. I support things that get people out to exercise and different things. We've had discussions over the years, and things have changed and things have improved. I think the Run Club listened to concerns from the neighborhood in the past, and different things, and made changes in parking and noise levels and different things. And again, we've eliminated the open space fee, so there's less of a proprietary nature around from the neighborhood on the park. It is a public park, and I understand Councilwoman Rodella's argument that it's a public park, so people should be able to use it as a public park. The only concern I had is we've discussed this on more than one occasion, and it just seemed like a couple years ago the decision was, because we were getting some complaints from the neighborhood, is to encourage the Run Club to go over to the Highland Family Park when it's done, and Sarah basically gave reasons why that's not a possibility. But last year there was a discussion again, and the reason we gave for not moving over there is because the soccer fields were still growing the grass, and we didn't want a lot of people on those. So I was just a little surprised when all of a sudden it was kind of like, we're not going to use the Highland Family Park, they're just going to use this park. And so that's just kind of clarified. But there's been a lot of discussion in the past, and I think it's just one particular resident over in Canterbury Circle that complains now. And, I think it is a public park, and I support the Run Club. I'm not trying to oppose it. I was just curious when the decision was made not to move it over to the Highland Family Park.
I think, Rob, am I correct in saying that we can encourage them to move over to the Highland Family Park, but we can't require it because there's nothing that's happening there that goes against any codes or ordinances or anything? Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor. And to piggyback on that, my understanding is that we have encouraged them to move over. Not super strongly, but said, that seems like a really good place. We've got this brand new park. It's got a corridor, and for the reasons that, presumably, for the reasons that were mentioned earlier, that they said, no, that doesn't work for us. That we have, in fact, as a city, provided that encouragement at this point.
Councilmember Campbell?
I support the Run Club. I know that there's been some challenges. I believe that most of those have been resolved. I look at the list of concerns that noise, in parking. The parking's now at a church. That's not a problem. The noise isn't a problem, so I support it. But most importantly, we don't have a role here other than to say we support it. We're not in a position to require them to move. So,
Councilmember Rice?
Oh, yeah. So with what Sarah Sandberg-Pletch said, to force these people to go down 6,000 West where there's no sidewalks, and it's just terribly dangerous to send them that far, whether it's 2 miles or 4 miles. They have done away with their bullhorn. They've done away with the music. Frankly, they're almost done. August 22nd-ish, I think school starts about, I can't remember the date, 24th. And they don't even park in that, I've been over, I've sat and watched exactly what goes on. They're only there 30 minutes. They park at the church if they have to drive there to, there's a few that have to drive there to participate. And I just, slightly irritated. I mean, I sat out there and listened to this for 3 years. I mean, I've been out there for 5 years, here for 6 months. And I just think we need to, let this go. And it's 3 months out of the year. They're actually really quiet. I rolled down my window and I've asked, I said I would recommend not having dogs, but they pick up their trash, they take whatever trash, and they're picking up, like Sarah said, they're picking up other people's trash, they're cleaning up the park, they don't even use our garbage cans. So I just, whether it's 1 or 2 complaints over there, and I probably just lost 2 votes, but I will just tell you that they're not making a problem. They are actually giving these kids a safe environment to go on, and it's exercise, and it's great, and it's wonderful. And I appreciate Sarah and Jesse and those people that really promote this. And I'm in favor of just leaving them alone. This just keeps coming up and kind of wasting council's time. I mean, it's never a waste of time to discuss. If somebody has a complaint, I get that. But I just don't see the sound, I don't hear the noise, and I sat there and watched for 35 minutes. Thanks.
Councilmember Rodella?
Love Run Club, shares a run club at the park right by my house also. So only thing I would change is hopefully more kids join Run Club.
And I would say, I don't think it's a waste of council's time. I appreciate any time that we want to talk about something, and Dr. Smith is right that we had talked about in years past them going. So I think it's good to have the conversation and understand why it's still here.
So let me just make a comment. So the discussions we've had about the Run Club has made, and again, I support 100%, but the discussions we've had have resolved a lot of the issues we did have. I mean, better parking, no bullhorns, but there's been changes as well, from the city side on that. So I think it's fine if you stay there. I just wanted to talk about the history a little bit, and just because there's been a fair amount of discussion in the past, but I think it's great.
And I just want to clarify, I didn't mean to say that it was a waste of time, because every complaint I take seriously and I go out and I talk to people, but I just don't see a problem here.
Okay. So it looks like we're happy to see you running. No, thank you. I think it's a great thing that you guys do, and Kim's right. We should have a run club all over at every park. I'm not going to run, but I think everybody else should be running.
I committed to coming out and running for at least 100 feet before I fell over gasping.
I could go with you, Doug. I could do that. Thank you. I think it's a great service. We love that you have it, and we appreciate what you do to minimize the impact.
And thanks for sitting here for 3 hours.
Much appreciated. Thank you. If you guys leave now, you're going to miss David's debut.
And he's talking about finances and investments, so that'll no doubt be really exciting too.
It's his big debut tonight. Hi, David.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for giving me a couple minutes. My presentation will be brief. Just wanted to give you an update on our investment portfolio and kind of how things are going there. You'll recall that back in September of 2025, we invested $15 million with Meter Investments. They laddered our investments, meaning they purchased some long-term things, some medium-term, and some short-term. So we're trying to maximize yield, but also kind of buffer any interest rate risk that may be out there. When we did that in September, we were trying to time it where we knew that the Fed was about to lower a rate, and they did, but we didn't quite get the rate that we wanted. We were a little late because the market had known that the Fed was going to do that, so the market had already gone down before the Fed lowered their rate. So because of that, when you look at the average yield for our $15 million investment over the last 9 months or so, we're at about 3.33%, where if that money would have stayed in our PTIF, which is the State Treasurer's Fund, we've had an average yield on that money of about 4%. So currently, as far as a revenue of interest aspect, the decision is not necessarily paying off in that regard. But we are still bringing in revenue for interest. As you can see, our Meter Investment brought in about $316,000 in revenue, and then for that $15 million investment. And then the approximately $13 million that was left in our PTIF account has brought in about $395,000. What I did want to show, which is something that's positive, is on the next slide, if you'll go to the next one. This chart just shows you that rate trend over the last number of months. And you can see where the PTIF rate has decreased from September from just under 4.5% down to about 3.8 something currently. Where our Meter Investments, as expected, have remained more stable because we are purchasing longer term investments, locking in rates for a longer period of time. So one of the issues, I think that it's just hard to know exactly what rates are going to do, especially with the way the economy has been kind of up and down, and nobody knows exactly what's going to happen with it. One of the things that the Fed's mandate, as many of you know, is to keep interest rates as low as possible to spur growth, but also to keep inflation in check. Inflation, their goal is to keep inflation around 2%. The most recent inflation data that just came out recently was that the year-over-year inflation rate was about 4.2%. So because of that, the Fed has been reluctant to decrease their rate, which means for us, good news for our PTIF investments, the rate has remained higher than maybe some may have anticipated. But we don't feel like that will be forever, and that eventually, as inflation calms down, the Fed will want to lower rates at some point. Maybe that's next year, the year after that, we don't know. But when that does happen, we anticipate that this yield chart will show a different, they'll cross. The PTIF rate will go back down below what our Meter Investment rate is bringing in. So long term, I think it's still a good strategy and a smart decision. It's just in the short term, it hasn't necessarily paid off how we hoped it might. So happy to answer any questions about.
Thank you, Dr.
that.
Smith.
So the question I have is, are we adding into either one of these funds or just the PTIF? Do we add into the meter fund?
So the only thing that gets added into the meter fund is the interest that's earned. It
Okay,
goes
so we're not
into the market
putting
value.
more.
Right, we're not putting any more of
more
our
capital.
assets into it, our capital.
But
The
there-
PTIF, that one fluctuates because we do bring a lot of our state revenues, like our sales tax and our property tax, our B&C roads, all of those go into our PTIF account. And then for cash flow needs, we'll transfer money out of that into our checking account to be able to.
So that's more
to
of a
pay
fluid
insurance. Yeah.
account.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it has hovered right around that 12 to 13 million range for the last 9 months or so. So it hasn't really dipped.
Councilmember Courtney?
I think that when we made this change, we knew that the effect was going to vary somewhat depending on what the market's doing.
Yep.
Long term, if PTIF were to stay exactly the same and interest rates were to stay the same, I would expect that we'd probably be slightly above that just because it's long-term investments. But
yeah.
They'd hit very close. And to me, one of the big pluses to doing this is the stability and the forecastability. And I think we're getting that. And even seeing this data, I have no reason to second guess our decision to do that. I still think it was a good decision for both of those reasons. So,
Councilmember Campbell?
Yeah, I'm not convinced that it was a good decision. I mean, you look at that gap, and that's money we lost.
Yeah.
Of that 15 million, we could have had the 4.5 down to 3 point whatever it is now. So my concern isn't necessarily that we abandon this, but that we look very closely at, is this PTIF going to go down and dip and cross? Because if it isn't, the sooner we figure that out, the better we are stewards of our tax dollars.
Yeah, based on history, it will. We just don't know when.
Yeah.
We don't know when the economy will be in a place where the Fed feels like they have to lower rates down to zero again. When that happens, the PTIF rate will go right down with it. Just a few years ago, the PTIF rate was 0.5%. It was next to nothing in interest revenues that cities were getting. So it will happen at some point, just with the cyclical nature of economies and rates, but we just don't know how long before that happens.
But the other downside to the meter fund is that it's not accessible to us. Is that right? I mean, if we need it, we have to go to the PTIF money to get it.
Not entirely true. We have regular meetings with our meter advisor, and if we have an upcoming liquidity need where our PTIF monies won't cover a project that we need to do, we can talk with them and plan ahead. If we need it tomorrow, yeah, that's a problem. We can't get the money tomorrow, but if we're planning ahead and we need it a few months from now, some of those shorter term investments that we've put money in, we can let those mature and not reinvest that money and have it accessible to us.
Got it. So I'm cautiously okay with it.
Yeah, which is that's the whole reason we didn't just throw all of our money into this. Is we wanted to have kind of the best of both worlds. We have
but so far we've lost money, and I just want to make sure there's a point to which we say, let's stop losing money.
Yeah.
And we will continue to get regular updates.
Yes.
Councilmember Rice, questions?
So both of these are based on market. Nothing is guaranteed. We don't have because I have one that is guaranteed like 3%.
Yeah, no.
Unusual, okay. So decision was made before I came on, and at the time I didn't think it was a very good decision. I don't like leaving money on the table, and I'm going to get Ron to high-five me yet tonight, but I really don't like that big gap. I don't. And
it's not
David,
ideal.
I know you work like a dog.
Yeah.
I know you do. I know all the staff does, and I really appreciate all you do. But I am not a person, I can't afford to leave 1%, and that's almost what it looks like on the table. Maybe it's a little less than that. So I think we need to reconsider or really take a look and keep a close watch. And I know you do updates, and that's
Currently,
great.
it's about 0.5%.
0.5%.
That's the difference right now. Yep.
Okay. Well, that's a bit of a gap.
For the amount of investment we have, it's a significant
For a
amount of
retired
money.
school teacher, that's a bit of a gap for me.
Yep.
So thank you for your time.
Yeah, understood.
Kim?
Investments are a long-term game, and you're taking a short-term look at this. And so if you want to take a broader long-term look, I believe this is still the better investment.
Yeah, that's my hope, is that in 2-3 years, we look at this again and you'll say, we're glad we did that.
Well, hopefully I'm wrong, but my investments don't make that kind of a gain, so.
Yeah.
So I asked questions before. Just a comment. Just refresh my memory.
Mm-hmm.
What is our time commitment with the meter fund?
There's no time commitment other than we've purchased some longer-term instruments, and so we would have to allow those to mature before we could get any.
So
of that
if we
cash back.
track this for long, we can make other decisions.
Yeah,
about
and
this.
if your question is regarding meters specifically, and we wanted to look for a different advisor that would help us invest our money, there's not a specific term in our contract with them. We could let them know, we're not happy with.
So I
with your
couldn't remember that
performance,
we
and
made
could-
like a multi-year contract.
But we would need
or
to find
anything else.
somebody else to help us finish out those those
Long-term
maturities.
investments. Okay, that's my only question.
If I'm remembering correctly, the average term that we were aiming for was between 3 and 4 years. Is that?
Yeah. I think the longest we've gone out on any purchase is 5 years. So
And how long has this been so far? I'm sorry.
since September.
September.
So about 9 months. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the survey topics, but we've got a work session we need to get to. So this is just kind of informational that this is happening, but if you have any specific topics, comments, questions, let's do those via email.
Yeah, you'll be getting an email soon. It'll have last year's survey, and then the first page is usually demographic stuff that we get from you, or not demographic, but kind of quality control stuff that we do every year. So
if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, send them to Jay. Rob.
Only significant update, as you recall, Mr. Tyrix came in a little bit ago for a code amendment about the rounding in R140, and you passed an ordinance to allow it rounding up and down. He was able to acquire some property from a neighbor. He went through. We had a preliminary plat approval for a 6-lot subdivision last week at the Planning Commission. So he's working on final plat and plans now. So hopefully the next 2-3 months he'll be out and developing.
Okay, since this is a community development update, can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
So this is not related, but where is Highland Mains on opening? I mean, I've walked up in there, that looks like a lot of things are being finished.
Kim could speak to that.
Because
Kim met with.
people
were you
ask me
there?
this
No,
all the
Doug
time,
was
and I
there.
just wondered where they are.
Jeff, go for it, Rob.
We got 4 businesses that are they're finishing out their tenant improvements. They're close to the end there. Gelato, Pliables, Wellness Studio, and I'm blanking on the 4th one right now. The developers, they're going to finish not just finish, they're going to kind of do a basic improvement for the rest of them, but I already talked to someone else who wanted to bring in like a boutique furniture store and a cafe from Heber City that he's had an ongoing business, and bring that here instead. And we also got a building permit for the Drew Parcell office building on the northeast corner, so that's in process as well. So still entertaining and hearing things from them. No specific new restaurants I can.
Then he had a
offer to you at the
couple of
moment.
restaurants, Scott, I think that he has in the works, and I think he's not quite as full as he would like to be at this point, but is hoping to work with the city and the chamber and the fling and maybe get some more advertisement out there. Doug and I met with them the other day. Doug, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that it pretty much covers it.
So they're not as full as they would like to be.
Yeah, people ask me all the time about the restaurants, and I just didn't know.
Nothing fancy.
Are they working on the fence so that you can get occupancy permits?
They are.
Okay.
And they're about 40% full, right? Isn't that right? 40%, we're at 40% there?
That was about right when we talked to them.
Sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Okay. I think that's all we had for this session. So let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and then we can start on our work session.
Is it permissible if we eat during the work session?
I'm totally fine with it.
I mean, we've got wonderful cookies and some cupcakes.
I'm ready for a cupcake. We know Kim is.
Thanks, Mayor.
for
I
it.
was really excited when I saw this screen because I thought we were talking about pirates, but I guess, yes.
We're going to talk
We're
about
gonna
the pirate
no,
ship.
we're gonna all talk. I want your entire presentation in pirate now.
And I'm very disappointed that you didn't come dressed appropriately.
Me goals are to collect revenues to match our existing revenue stream that we have. This budget, when we're looking at PI rates, we're not trying to fluff up our fund balance. We're not trying to add more money to it. We're just trying to cover what we've already basically been able to collect from our residents who pay their PI bills, but we also do want to encourage residents to use what they're allocated. We talked at the last work session a lot about, you know, the allocations are per lot based on what, you know, the overall development was. You know, every lot has so many acre feet of water that were allocated for that, and we're just trying to get people to actually only use that much. We feel like just based on at least what we've seen, you know, it's doable to do that. I understand in some cases it might be hard, but if we get people to use what's been allocated, we won't be making any additional revenues than what we're already collecting right now. So we've looked at a tiered rate. You know, this is something, you know, again, the meters were kind of a requirement mandate from the state, so we're trying to conform with that. We're trying to set up tiers like the state has asked for cities to do as well. We're actually looking at tiers 1 and 2 to actually decrease the amounts that residents would pay. So if they're using less than their allocated water, they actually get a benefit. They actually get a reduction in their bill. Will pay less, so there's more incentivized to use less than that. Tier 3 goes up to 100% of what their allocation is. So we would, when we're looking at revenue, we're looking at, you know, assuming that people do what we've asked them to do and use up to their allotment, you know, that most residents will be in tiers 1, 2, or 3. And then tiers 4, 5, and 6, you can see that they kind of go up from there to up to 150, 200, and then 250% of their allotment. And you can see between tier 5 and tier 6, we're looking at a fairly large jump, you know, doubling the rate that we would charge per 1,000 gallons on that, because at that point it is becoming more punitive. And as residents are using more and more water beyond what they're actually allocated, we may have to make adjustments to our system to actually be able to accommodate that. We may want, at some point, ask them to purchase additional water rights beyond what they've already given to the city or other things. So we want to try to bring people down to that allocation amount.
Chris?
Yes?
Two related questions. You said earlier that the state has asked us to put in a tiered. My recollection is that that's a really polite way of saying it, that the state didn't, in fact, ask us to do anything. Am I just misunderstanding? I thought that they said, "Thou shalt."
So what I know, I'm not sure that it actually required the tiered rates. Did it, Robisi?
There was a bill that actually mandated very specific categories. That didn't pass. There is something that says we're supposed to adopt something that essentially incentivizes conservation. So it's not as specific as before. It was like you have to have at least 4 categories that do this. That's not part of it. But there is supposed to be a conservation element, meaning we push people to save water.
Right. And there really isn't any way of doing that without a tiered system. So, okay. Yeah.
There was that bill that was, I believe it was passed last year by the Drinking Water, where they will start charging cities, municipalities, based on their usage. And if there is not a tiered structure in place, what they charge will be substantially more than what they would charge if there was a tiered rate in place. So in that way, they have kind of backhandedly required tiered rates.
Currently, we have 2 rates that we're paying on our bills. Will this replace both of those or just one of those?
I thought we just had one bill.
No,
one rate
I
on
have
bill.
2
on
my bill
PI?
for secondary water.
For secondary water. Well,
I don't have
this
it
would
with me.
replace any existing bills that we have.
Yeah, I think existing has a rate.
A base and then a usage?
Yeah, a base plus square footage.
Yes, so what I'm asking is, will it be divided to replace both of those where we had the base? And
yeah.
So this will be one taking that base and then your acreage allotment charge or whatever it is, okay.
Yeah. And when we met before, the council was kind of inclined to at least narrow it down from the 4 options to the 3 options that we had. So we've got the 3 options. Option 1 is a $15 base with additional, with a square footage cost plus the tiered usage. Options 2 and 3 are more of just a square footage cost plus usage for over that base rate. And the idea behind those is Option number 2, we looked at 50% of the revenue that we were looking to receive would be covered in the base cost, and the rest of it would be made up in tiered costs. And option number 3, that went up to about 2/3, or 67% of it would be in the base rate, and then the remaining 33% would be made in usage, with the thought being that option number 2 would be more reflective, promote more conservation, because more of it relies on collecting money from the tier portion of it, not the base rate, but the actual usage. Our target goal, like I mentioned, yes?
Can I ask a question? So, like Tier 1, where you say the $15 base rate, is that a rate for 12 months of the year, right?
Correct.
So every month you get charged the
Yep.
15 plus the other?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So again, when we're talking about what revenue we're looking at, we've kind of put together days of cash on hand. You usually see this when we're doing rate reviews. We've got quite a bit of cash on hand right now, because we were expecting to have to pay portions or most of our metering costs to install meters. We were able to get grants, ARPA funding through the state to help offset that. But even with the very, healthy fund balance that we have right now, you can see that as we continue to go on in some of our other capital improvement projects will have to be built or installed. You can see that we start running low on the 365 days of cash when we get to about 2034 in this point. So at some point, we will still have to raise rates, but we could have tried to lower that, but then it would have just meant that we would have to raise rates sooner than that. So that's kind of, again, how we've come up with some of our recommendations for this. One thing that we wanted to look at, because we are charged just the flat rate right now based on the square footage of lots, we looked at different scenarios for the 3 different options. Depending on your lot size, this slide just kind of provides you with what some of your monthly costs would be. And just to be clear on that, the winter months, are your months November to April, so that's what you'd be paying for 6 months out of the year. If we look at option 1 underneath the 0.25 acres, it shows that $31. That is about what you would be paying in May and October, assuming if we look at, the shoulder months, when you're usually using less water, so you're usually about, it's not really 10% of your allocation, but it's a reduction of what you would be. So those actually add up to 100%. So 10% of your annual allotment would be used in May and in October. So you'd have 6 months of $24, 2 months $31, 2 months at $37, and then when you're using your full monthly allotment, it's about $40. I think one thing that option 1 kind of does, if you look at this, is it's a little bit flatter fee throughout the course of the year than what some of the other 2 options are. So that's one thing that I think might be beneficial to our residents, to have a little bit more of a flat fee. It doesn't have quite the same, motivation for conservation, I think, is the other ones that rely a little bit more heavily on the usage, but.
And it's okay if you use me for an example, but my biggest concern, and I will, you know how I feel about this, but I'm still questioning the tiers a little bit, but July and August are ugly at my house. And I'm probably one of the smaller lots in Diamond Estates. I actually think I am the smallest lot in Diamond Estate, not in the Ivory Homes section. They're 3rd acres, I'm half. But that July and August, I just think we really need to take a look at that. I mean, it's probably fine under option 1. That's your favorite, right?
Yeah.
The most economical. It really worries me. I mean, and I've cut back a lot. You've seen what we worked together, and May has been good, June was good, July is ugly.
Yeah.
And I'm only 7 days in.
And and I think that goes fairly common throughout most of the state, frankly. July and August are our hottest months. They are the ones that are hardest for people to maintain their yards without using a lot of water. So, so I think that's absolutely something that's worth considering. We wanted to provide some examples of what some usage could be in different various parts of the city. And we looked at some of the usage throughout the city for different lot sizes in different areas of the city. And these are based on 2025 usage rates that you can see. And so one particular lot in Viewpoint used only about 73% of their allotment. Another lot in the Country Club was closer to 163. You can see most of these actually have used more than the 100% of their allotment. Several of these lots, though, coincidentally, perhaps not coincidentally, are corner lots that also include some side yard park strips, which does add about an additional 3%. So it may not really be the cause behind all of that additional usage, but I think it does contribute to a point.
And I'm one of those corner lots.
So these lots that we're looking at here, these are not mean numbers. These are a specific lot that we picked out of each.
These are specific lots that were picked out of each of these different areas of the city.
And how
Seems
did we
like
pick
they're
them?
city council lots.
They are city council. I'm right there, Doug. Do you want me to point me out? Would you like me to point me out?
Yeah, well, I was trying to protect your privacy, but you're asking me straight up.
I appreciate that.
And, you know, and partly so that it brings it a little bit home and council members know what they're using and have that relationship and that idea, so they get a little bit more of a real world application of what the usage is and what the rates might mean to them.
So we talked earlier today about we have to have a year for equal pay, right? But a lot of us have that year.
We have that year, and I guess the only real concern that we have is that until people know what they're actually using, you know, is that what you want your equal bill to be paid on, what you used last year or what you used this year, after you know what the consequences could be and what your charges could actually be. Like you've said, you've made efforts to try to reduce your usage, and I think most residents would rather use a more of an informed average year than they would an uninformed average year.
And one of the goals for tonight, correct me if I'm wrong, is to come up with a preferred option so that people can start seeing what that real world effect is going to be on them.
So that we can start advertising, absolutely.
That's where we're going.
Are these numbers based on last year or this year?
Last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, and I think with the exception of July, I've conserved a little bit better, but with Rocky Mountain Power, I'm on equal pay. And they base it on the higher amount no matter what, it seems. I could be wrong on that, but that's what it seems to be to me, out of my years.
I was thinking it was based more on an average, but it could be a high average. It could be an average plus 10% or something. So we do have some additional, as we've looked at the first couple of months so far in 2026, using the same kind of sample population. And we have seen actually a 20% reduction across the board on these examples approximately, if we look at some of these numbers through here. And you can see kind of on the right-hand side, we've looked at what the costs would have been for 2025 versus 2026, depending on which options we're looking at. And I think, we've got one that's still close to 133%, but most of them are really, really pretty close to 100%, if not under. So, and just, again, real-world scenario, I looked at my personal billing this last month, and I was probably about 120%. I am also on a corner lot. For my bill, that extra 20% was an extra $30 on my bill, which I found as acceptable to me, because I would probably spend more on products to try to get it looking greener than,
Well, and my indoor use went up as well. I got billed a little bit more this month because I've been
using some
watering per plant instead of the weeds, and a couple of dry spots that way, so.
And I've done a little bit of that as well.
Yeah.
So I've kind of gone through that really quickly, and I did email out the presentation to the council earlier today. I really had wanted to get that out to you prior to the weekend, but everybody was out having fun anyway, so you probably wouldn't have spent a whole lot of time looking at some of these numbers. But I know there's a lot of numbers that we're looking at, so it may still take some additional time to digest, but our goal is hopefully to get to a point where we can present something to residents so that they have something to look at. We at the last work session, were asked to look at some additional cities to see what they've used, so we've included that through here. We've got our existing costs based on an annual amount. We've got option 1, 2, and 3, and then we've also included Alpine, Saratoga Springs, and Cedar Hills. And you can see that, I don't know what the operational costs are. Honestly, looking at that, the Alpine costs seem pretty low, especially when you compare it to those other 2 cities. I don't know how, and that's why it's kind of hard to make real comparisons. I think things are set up to be somewhat, everyone has tiers. They usually have a base rate or something like that, but their actual, what they need to collect to make their fund balance whole, to cover their O&M costs and their capital improvement costs are just not always the same. So we'll see the fluctuations when we try to compare ourselves to other municipalities.
Why does the staff prefer option 1?
My preference for number 1 is, like I said before, I think it just balances out over the course of a year a little bit better, which is a little bit more closer to what residents are used to. If we do an equal bill pay, then maybe that's a moot point. And then I might say that my preference would be to go with option, I think at one point option 3 was our preference, as because of the 67%.
But I figured that on my July and August bills, that my bill could be $100. Didn't we figure $100 more for July, $100 more for August?
We did, and one of the things as we look at this, that honestly, until we started looking at Liz's bills earlier today, it makes it even more confusing, is we bill basically from the 15th through the 15th. So we bill across months. So as we look at, reduce usage on shoulder months, it makes it a little bit harder. All of the presentation that we put together, on some of these months, we didn't, I guess we combined the year on those, but when we look at the website, when people can go and look at their bills, it shows a monthly usage. It doesn't show billing cycle usage. We've gone back to census to see if that's something that we could have changed, so that we're looking at actual billing cycles, but I don't think we've heard back. I mean, and that was a request that we just sent out earlier today, so.
When it shows us on our page, average daily use, is that dividing by 7? Or because I put that in as what my target was, and it says I'm over every time, and I'm using a lot less than I did on my average. So if I'm only watering 3 days a week, but is that daily doing it divided by 7 or by 3?
I am not sure. I'm absolutely not sure.
I believe it's 7.
So I've been on that about every other day, and just to try to figure this out. But when I get the alert, I divide. So if I'm watering 3 times and I get 65,000 gallons, if I'm watering 3 times a week, I divide 65 by 28. Just a minute.
Yeah.
3 times by 12. 3 times 4 is 12. So, but I had to redo that because when I realized we bill from the 15th to the 15th, then I kind of had to divide that a little bit better. And you guys have asked us, well, the state's asked us to try twice a week in July. That's almost impossible for me.
I will say that the state now is recommending 3 days a week.
3 days a week, okay.
That's been recent.
All right.
So this chart is based on these lot sizes using 100% of their allocation. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, right?
That's where the numbers come from?
Yep.
Okay. So would I be correct in describing this as one of the side effects of this is we are shifting costs away from smaller lots and toward larger lots.
So option one holds that a little bit closer, if you can see, with the $15 base.
That pulls it closer, but it's still.
Can you get closer to the microphone for Stephanie? Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, when we started looking at tiers 2, 3, and 4, yeah, there was a little bit of a discrepancy, and it did go from the larger lots, we're paying a little bit less, as you can see, and then that shifted to the smaller lots, now paying quite a bit less. And so that's where the base came in. And in discussions, that's just, everyone has a 1-inch meter, everyone needs to help with the meter personnel, the bringing the water in. There is a portion that everyone's fair to to take. Yep. But yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Yep.
And so when you say that doesn't entail operating costs, so that doesn't, I'm trying to not to insult anybody here, but some of those meters aren't like the best you can buy. So does that mean that the repair costs, I mean, if we have a severe winter, some of those meters aren't going to make it, right? So we take that out of that other fund to repair
we
to
would have
repair
to
the meters,
replace
and that's not up to the homeowner. That's up to
on the city.
The city. Okay.
Yeah, if we have damaged meters. I did actually maybe want to go back just where we had this slide and we talked about the 20% reduction. We have seen so far right now what our PI system is using is probably has been reduced about 20% from last year. We've looked at also some of the usage that we've seen, and we have definitely seen a reduction in city overall, a reduction in water usage. I applaud these, sample completely anonymous people that we've looked at as an example, but it's also a citywide trend where we have seen a pretty good reduction. One thing that again, it's not included in this presentation, but Tavis has kind of gotten some information on some of our higher users that we have in the city. We have some users, some of them are HOAs, some of them are businesses, but we do have some users that are using up to 20 times what their allotment is. Several more that are using 10 times. A lot that are using maybe twice their allotment and all that.
So were these the rice farmers?
I haven't seen any rice farmers. Mushrooms. The very, very top user I think we had is Jiffy Lube, and we think that's more of a calculation of what they're supposed to be using versus what they actually are using. Their square footage that's attributed to them. Sure. I think Jiffy Lube might be irrigating that entire corner lot, even though they only have a portion of it. And you've got the gas station right there. Yeah.
So this is meant to be a compliment. So you said as a whole, we're using 20% less pressurized irrigation.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we were blessed with 5 weeks ago we had that wonderful rain, and we certainly need a lot more. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think the public parts of the city look much better this year. And so that's due that all the work that people have done with fertilization and fixing all the sprinkler heads and everything. So I think that's a good,
yeah.
I just want to compliment the Public Works and everybody that's worked on that.
Yeah. So where we wanted to go from here is we do want to have some direction of where we want to present to residents of what our rate structure might be so that they can have something, a real world experience and kind of look at their usage. I want to say that we're probably 22% of our residents have signed up to be able to view the portal, which I think is a great number. When I've talked to other cities, I think most of them are closer to 15, 12%. So
I've really pushed that with everybody. So I have a question. So let's give you some if we give you direction tonight, which I'm assuming we will do, and I'm just curious of what you can do, versus what we want you to do, because what I would like to see on my bill is, and for other residents I've talked to, they would like to say, okay, well, this is my regular bill. Under the new PI rates, which I don't know exactly when we're going to start, this is what your bill would be for this month. is that hard, is that super hard to put in? I'm assuming it's hard, nothing is easy, but is that a possibility that we could do so they could see and give input before we make a final decision on this?
Yeah, I think that's exactly one of the things that we've been trying to work forward, to at least show their usage and show what their allotment should be. So I don't know if we can put in what their bill would be based on the new rate, but if we could show them what their usage is and what their allotment is, then that's something that we could include a calculator on our website that they could figure
Well,
out.
because I know I get those little efficiency reports from Rocky Mountain Power, and it says you are not the best, but you are way above average on your conservation, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, I would just love to, I bug you guys way too much on, where am I at and stuff, but I just wish we could put something there this would be what your bill would be under the new PI rates. So people, especially those that are.
We can have that conversation and see if that's possible to do that. Yeah. Once we get kind of a rate set, we want to be able to show providers, to provide the information to residents. Allotment, update the website with rate information, provide the usage and billings, and provide a calculator for residents to understand the billings. Then we want to keep an eye on usage through 2026. We probably would come back in the fall to make the official adoption. If the council wants to hold off for another year so that residents have that 1 year cycle, we could do that. But we would like to come back in the fall, kind of revisit this so we can kind of gear up, because the thought being that we would want to implement this before the actual irrigation season. We'd probably want the rates to be effective January 1st.
Is it too expensive to send out another one of those PI cards?
No, I think we still have some funding to be able to send out some additional cards. I think one of the things that we've talked about is looking at our high-end users and sending out, whether it's door hangers or something else, to let people know that, hey, you are using a lot more water than what your allotment is. We would, because on some of these, it could very well be that they've got leaks on their system as well.
Well, and I'm the last one to really, as I drove here tonight, Mountain Ridge had their water on in 93-degree water. And I'm willing to make the call. I know that they probably have enough cycles, but if they started at midnight, it seems to me that would be shut off by at least 7 or 8 a.m. Running it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon is just, I think somebody needs to make a call.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's probably some churches that probably over some institutional uses. Good.
So, can I make a little comment? I brought this up before, but I was talking to Chandler Godwin, who's the city administrator at Cedar Hills. I asked them, because they've implemented theirs, and they said when they implemented it, they discovered that there was one homeowner or so that was using 1 million gallons a year, and they found out they just had a leak. So sometimes it uncovers leaks, and so it'd be a good reason for people to use their water more efficiently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is one of the reasons the state gave for implementing these requirements for the meters, because then it does identify leaks within systems. And I know when we had the open house, we had someone come in and Gretchen helped them get set up on the portal, and that's the first thing they noticed is, hey, you're here, you've got water being used every day, you've got a leak. So, and we can do that with an audit too, that we could probably do internally, to just go through and try to identify people that are using water consistently every day, because most likely they're not irrigating, there's a leak. Maybe there's some cases. We also, we've talked a little bit at the last work session about agreements that the city has, irrigation agreements with certain residents that say, I have 5 acres, but I'm only going to irrigate 1 acre. It may very well be that they are now irrigating 2 or 2.5 acres. And as we identify some of these over users that we have on the system, it may be that we need to go back and revisit the irrigation agreements that we have with some of these individuals, so that they're actually being charged, or else they will get a $1,000 bill. I know, talking with Kevin Anderson with Cedar Hills, he said, yeah, we had some people that had bills over $1,000. So
That's a wake-up call.
It certainly is a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we would rather people find that out before they actually are charged
that
amount. A couple of other maybe questions that we can talk about. How do we let residents know that they're using over? I think some door hangers, doing some audits, but just, again, trying to actually pinhole those specific users would probably be the best way. Some cities require a reduced shoulder month usage. That's something, as I've thought more about it, just with our billing cycle, I think would be a little bit harder to implement, but that's where you have your May, where you're just starting to irrigate your yard, even April, that last part of April. But your usage usually is lower for those, springtime and fall than what it is throughout the peak summer.
But
yeah.
in October last year, I didn't have any either because it rained a lot. But I have to hand it to you, if you don't mind me just inserting something, but those little things you gave out at the open house, I've been and I know people do it with tuna fish cans, but it actually measures, I put it in different places in my yard to see how much I'm watering. It's not just for rain.
Right.
Because I have a smart system and it shuts off for the rain. But I really appreciate that. I do, because I can see how much I'm watering my yard, and then I can go back in and say, oh, I'm watering 109%. I can cut back to the 99% or 98% of a smart water system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. I do think that tuna fish cans are recommended by most pirates, but the other gauges work just as well. I think that pretty much concludes what I've put together. I'd love to see if the council has any other comments or questions or discussion.
Kim?
I will do whatever staff says.
So I really appreciate the discussion. I kind of lean towards option one. And I think these questions you have are things we'll continue to ask and certainly present in public hearings. I echo the rain gauge thing, because you can use that to measure how much irrigation you're putting in certain areas too. Because I got my rain gauge in my garden, and it was kind of cool when we had that big rain. I got over an inch of rain in 24 hours, so it was kind of cool. So I think you're doing a great job. I like option one so far from what I see, and I think these questions we just need to kind of work through.
Doug?
Yeah, I still like option one. I would be interested to know kind of what our percentiles of use are. That we've seen what using 100% looks like, but I don't have any idea what percentage of our users use 100%. I mean,
Tavis actually had that in a spreadsheet we were looking at earlier today, and I almost thought about asking him to give me a screenshot of that to include it. But I want to say that you were looking at the spreadsheet. I'll maybe let you explain it.
I think we were 40% of users were using over their allotment, and and that's rough, over the last 2 months, and 60 were at or below.
Okay.
So, and then there was, I think, Chris, right here, 15% were using more than 1.5 times, up to, the 20. And just for a number, I looked at that really quick, and that was about 150 acre feet that was overused by those in the 150 plus percentile, which is significant over 6 months. That's like, we're pushing 1,000 acre feet, which is a lot for our system. It's over 10% of what we'd be using. But yeah, if that helps.
But that 60%, that he mentioned this year, I mean, last year was about 80% of our residents were using more than their allotment. So, and again, it was May and June, but they were still very dry, months.
Anything else, Doug?
Nope.
Ron?
I had a resident that approached me and said that you're pushing for conservation and that we conserve on the secondary water, which filters down into the aquifers, and we don't get as much water into the aquifers, which then doesn't get as much water into the Great Salt Lake because we're not filling our aquifers. Is there any validity to that?
So there's, yeah, I mean, my opinion, so we've got different aquifers.
Yes.
And our aquifer doesn't get into our drinking water. Our drinking water comes from the mountains and gets in at least, yeah.
Our
starting at
aquifers
kind of
come from the mountains?
mouth of the canyon, yeah. So those pieces that come into our, yeah, with PI, we may have a little bit that goes into the sloughs, maybe a little bit comes out into Utah Lake.
Yeah.
There would be far more conservation by not using as much and letting it go down the rivers.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
All right. I like option one, mainly because the staff likes it and I trust the staff.
Liz, anything else?
Yeah, so on the 26% allotment, what I remember us talking about today was that little allotment doesn't really include July's. Was I wrong on that? Or
No.
did I misunderstand you? So, like, my allotment really is closer to, what? I think we need to discuss South Highland, South Canterbury at 133%, but 133% would be even higher than that for July. Am I wrong on that? Did I hear you correctly today?
Yeah, when we looked at it, and we can go back and look at that again, when Tavis put this together for South Highland, that one was about 101%, but when we looked at the usage earlier today, it was closer to 133. So these numbers
But that
were
would
probably
put South
taken-
Canterbury higher than 133, correct?
Yeah, so these numbers were from the May reading and the June reading.
June reading, okay.
Mid-April to mid-May,
Right.
mid-May to mid-June. So 2 months worth of use.
I'm way over. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Based
That's all I
based
have.
on the billing cycle, not the month.
Do you have an option that you lean towards, Liz?
I believe option one. I would really like, Chris was awesome, and he printed out a couple of things for me, and then I went home and printed out his entire PowerPoint, because I've just had tons of people ask me about this, and I have gotten actual bids from replacing I've told you this before, replacing my park strip with rock because I'm on a corner, replacing it with turf. Option one still seems to be the best, even above those, because the turf is $12,000. The rock comes in at about between $6,000 and $8,000, depending on what kind of rock I use. And that is, if I just conserve, I don't think I need to do that. So, and I've done that specifically so I could share that with my neighbors, so, too. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Thank you,
So it
Mayor.
sounds like you have a preference.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay, anything else you need from us?
No, I think we're
Okay.
good.
Thank you very much.
Yes, really,
Honored.
thank you.
Thanks.
I love that. I want that every time now. Okay, I think we need a motion to adjourn to a closed meeting.
I'll move that the city council recess the regular city council meeting to convene in a closed meeting in the executive conference room to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation and the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property as provided by Utah Code annotated 52-4-205.
I'll second it.
Okay, and we'll start with Kim.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Okay, we're in closed session.